Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll please find a seat, we'll start the meeting in 1 minute. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll please take a seat, I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Destin City Council for December 18th to order, please. We have the Reverend Wayne Brown of the Destin United Methodist Church with us tonight for the invocation. You all please stand.
Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, we pause before the work of this council to give you thanks and to pray for blessing and guidance for our city and for these counselors. We thank you for the gift of life and for the opportunity that we get to call this amazing city, Destin, our home. And we thank you for the opportunity to serve the people of this city. And so we collectively seek the welfare of our city tonight, believing that when our city is blessed, we will be blessed. And so we pray for our mayor and for our city council members and city officials that you would bless them and their families as they fulfill their holy callings. We ask specifically tonight, God, that you would help us be the leaders that your people need. We pray that you would give us a spirit of service, that you would help us act with character and in conviction, to listen with understanding and goodwill, and to speak with charity and restraint. We pray for the agenda that's set before us this evening. Would you give us assurance of what you would please you and what would benefit those who live and work around the beautiful city of Destin? And finally, Father, we pray that you would renew us with strength, the strength of your presence and the joy of helping build a flourishing and life-giving community, both for our residents and all our guests who seek renewal and rejuvenation visiting the Emerald Coast. We pray all these things, entrusting these cares to your will. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Councilmember Marler, would you lead us in the pledge?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty for justice for all.
I believe we have some agenda items that we are going to slightly modify or move this evening. Jeff, you want to go first on that?
Yes, Mayor. Number 4D, go and get rid of the entire item and then substitute in just a motion to rescind that RFP, and then like to consider that before the approval of the minutes. And then there's a second item. I believe this is a request from staff and Kim Kopp, both 5A, the first reading of ordinance 17-15-CC. Since it's dealing with mobile vending, it would make sense to consider that alongside 6C, the other mobile vending ordinance tonight. And considering that it's not an actual public hearing, 5A, considering it with 6C actually increases the amount of due process afforded to everybody, so that won't prejudice anybody to do it in that fashion. So we would ask that those two changes be made.
Okay, will we do 5A before or after 6C?
You would need to do 6C first. That'd be the preferred order, I believe. And you would need to consider them separately.
So moved. Okay. So moved. I have a motion. I have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing no discussion, I call the question. We have a unanimous yes.
And then Mayor, since that got moved up to the very start, last Friday, the team from the city, which was myself, the city manager, yourself, and Attorney Chef Wright, we met with Gulf Power, and they've indicated that they're going to take the negotiations seriously and come back with a good offer next month, early in the month. And as a gesture of good faith, we agreed to rescind the RFP for now. And so we would ask that the RFP that went out, which is RFP 17-18-CC, be rescinded.
So moved.
I have a motion to rescind 1718-CC. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Councilmember Foreman.
I'm going to support it, but I think it's not going away unless we get a serious negotiation going.
I see no further discussion. I call for the vote. Excuse me, did we needed to open that to public discussion, didn't we?
We do,
Mr. Webb, would you reverse that vote or take that? There we go. Thank you. There's a motion on the floor and a second to rescind the RFP 1718CC. Public really hadn't had an opportunity on that. I will accept any, as this was not announced before, no requirement for a blue card. If you'll just raise your hand or get my attention if you wish to speak on it. It'll be limited to a discussion as to whether we should continue the RFP or, as the motion states, rescind the RFP. Any discussion from the audience? Not.
Mayor, I think there are quite a few people in the audience that wanted to speak on item 4D, but since we pulled it and substituted it with this, I'm not sure if they understand the procedure that we're...
Okay. If you do wish to speak on 4D, you can speak on any item on the agenda at the end of the meeting, and I'll call on for public comments at that time. Not seeing any public discussion. Any further from the council? If no further discussion, I call for the vote.
Mayor, there's one. Mayor.
4D has been pulled from the agenda. We are voting on a motion to rescind the RFP 17-18CC. We're talking about that now, but discussion will be limited to only whether we should or should not rescind the RFP. Yes. Yeah, come to the mic, please. Give us your name. Press the button. Excuse me. Give us your name and address.
Thank you. Mark Robertson. I've been going door to door for the last 4 weeks. I'm a candidate for Destin City Council, and I've been doing a listening campaign, probably in the spirit of Jimmy Carter, if you remember that. He wanted to listen to what the community was thinking and feeling. I sent a letter yesterday to Ray Bailey. There's a lot of concern.
You did understand we're talking about rescinding the RFP for Gulf Power. You need to limit your marks to whether we should or should not rescind the RFP. This later there's going to be plenty of time to discuss the Gulf Power and the proposition, but not now. You can do that at the end of the meeting. And we'll call for it then.
I will do that. I would recommend a cease and desist for looking over to purchasing the Gulf Power Company, so I guess that would be rescinding the RFP.
That would be correct.
If I can speak further, I've written some comments that I'd like to submit into the minutes. I did email this letter to Ray Bailey, the county clerk, assuming they would be circulated. I think the public has grave concerns about the disruption to our community to pursue this. So,
Okay, thank you very much.
you're welcome.
And you're most welcome at the end of the meeting to come back up and go through anything you'd
Okay,
like to.
I'm sorry I'm unfamiliar with your rules. I don't want to,
Yeah,
You know.
at the end of the meeting, you have 5 minutes
Okay.
to speak on any matters.
I will
of the
do
city,
that.
So that would be the.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay, I don't have my screen back here, so.
And Mayor, I'd go and let anyone who's here to speak on 4D just go and speak now, just to make sure they are afforded their
Right.
opportunity. They're going to say if you need to.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm not real familiar with what's gone on behind. I'm usually in jail on Monday night, and because of health issues, I got to be here tonight. Now, my question is, rescinding, revising, and reissuing RFP 17-18-CC. Does that mean we're going to start all over again? Does that,
Basically,
finalize it?
basically, we're rescinding the RFP, which means we're canceling it, basically, and it will be rewritten possibly at some point, but we've got another meeting with Gulf Power after the first of the year, and we're kind of putting everything off until that meeting takes place.
okay, but will it appear on the council agenda again?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Any action we take has to be agended,
Okay.
or we can't take a
Now,
vote.
is there another meeting on Friday morning regarding this with Gulf Power?
Not that I'm aware of.
Now that it's been rescinded, that meeting will not take place because that was
Okay.
part of the RFP. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Again, I see no one standing, no one waving. Council members have no further questions. Ray, okay. I call for the vote. Unanimous, yes. Ray, I can't seem to get it to go away tonight. Approval of minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve. Any discussion, comments, changes?
Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes of September 18th, 2017.
Second.
I have a motion to approve September 18 and a second. Any discussion? If not, I call for the vote. Have a unanimous yes. We have the approval of minutes for September 6th.
Motion to approve?
I have a motion. I have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I call for the vote. Unanimous yes. Under proclamations and recognitions, I would very much like to recognize the City of Destin Employee of the Year. Each year, an Employee of the Year is nominated and selected by their co-workers to celebrate the qualities that inspire us to achieve the city's mission. That mission, of course, is to provide quality service to our community through professionalism, communication, and teamwork. The 2017 Employee of the Year was selected among deserving individuals. This award has become a city tradition and is now in its 27th year. It is a pleasure to honor Lisa Frith of the Parks and Recreation Department as the 2017 Employee of the Year. Lisa, would you please join me at the podium? I'm going to try that one more time. Firth, is that correct?
That's correct.
Good. My wife made me practice that 3 times, and I still messed it up. I apologize. Lisa began working with the city in the Parks and Recreation Department in November of 1996 as a recreation assistant program planner. Since August of 1996, she has held the title of Deputy Parks and Recreation Director. She is responsible for planning, implementing, coordinating, and evaluating the parks and recreation programs. She has responsibility for interpreting the objectives and creating enthusiasm for recreation programs among subordinates, community groups, and volunteer organizations, and she has no problem with creating the enthusiasm, I hear. I'd like to read just a couple of remarks that her fellow employees made in her nomination. One, she specializes in communication and teamwork and is an asset for success. She possesses both. Does everything to keep our responsibilities, decisions, relationships, moral standards, and goals at the forefront of daily operations. This is the one I really wanted to read. Best boss ever. That pretty much says it all. Outstanding job working with everyone from officials to the public. She is one to admire. Lisa is dedicated to her work and mission. And on behalf of the citizens, elected officials, and staff, I would like to present you with this.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. It is an honor coming from all my teammates over there getting me this award. I'm very lucky to have the job that I do have, getting to meet all the people that come through my door, young and old, and I'm just very honored to be able to be here with the City of Destin. I've lived here for 40 years. Worked at the City of Destin for 20, and loving it every day. And I do have 3 of my family members here that support me in my long hours. My dad of 92 years of life. Dad, thank you. I think he's the one that taught me my work ethics. My daughter Melissa, who just joined us for the holidays, and my husband Ernie. So. They're always at all my special events, and they've always been a good supporter. So thanks, everybody.
And here's your certificate. And more importantly, they will be putting your name on a parking place that you get for 1 year.
Yeah, do you think everybody will stay out of it?
Good luck. Thank you. The mayor can't park there, huh?
Oh, I
It's now my pleasure to present the awards to the 2017 winners of the 33rd Annual Destin Christmas Parade. The theme of the parade this year was All I Want for Christmas. And
okay, first award goes to, it's a Noel Award sponsored by the Sign Chick Signs. The winners are the Fort Walton Beach and the Destin Middle School Band.
I should have said this. If there's a representative from each of these groups, please come up and accept your trophy.
Lisa, you don't want to be in the picture. Debbie didn't want to be in the picture.
Fort Walton Beach High School Band is having their Christmas concert tonight and dinner, which is why no one could not hear. So I volunteer. Thank you. I will take it to them.
Next, we have the Elf Award sponsored by Jim Leofow State Farm. And the winners are the Random Acts of Kindness Kids, RAKKs. The Santa's Helper Award sponsored by the AJ Seafood and Oyster Bar. The winner is the Rice Dance Center. Next, we have the Civic Award sponsored by the Emerald Coast Knights of Columbus, and it belongs to the Fort Walton Beach Mardi Gras Club / Queen Anne. The Chamber Award, sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce, belongs to AJ's. The Angel Award, sponsored by the Mike Cheney Allstate, belongs to the Rocky Bayou Christian School. Finally, the Crowd Pleaser Award, sponsored by the Destin Rotary. Winner is Impact Life Church.
This is the public comment section of our meeting. This is public comments on agenda items only. And this requires a blue card, of course. Mark Robertson, you wanted to talk on 4D, right? I'm sorry. Yeah, yours is, you'll be at the end. I'm sorry. Oh, you also would like to speak on 6D. Please come up. Now, if you would prefer on any items under 6, you can speak at the time we bring those before council if you'd rather wait till then.
Mayor, that's the appropriate time to actually talk about any of the public hearings.
I'm sorry to keep doing this to you. We're going to hold you to the time 6D comes up. All items under 6 do not require a blue card, and you speak on those at the time the item comes before the council. And the same would be for 6A. Okay, I do not have any other cards. Am I missing anyone? We'll move to the first reading of Ordinance 1715 CC.
Mayor, the city manager reports.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. We'll move to the city manager. Ms. Lejeune, I'm sorry. I should never miss you.
No problem. Our first item, sir, is the residence entrance agreement with Henderson Beach Park. And we do have an arrangement with the park where, and the citizens, where they can buy an annual pass, and then we reimburse every citizen $30 on that annual pass. In the past, we've had folks that like to walk or ride their bike to the beach, and that was a separate process. What we're trying to do is create efficiencies and also give the citizens an opportunity that if that's open to them as well to purchase a state pass, be reimbursed for $30, then they would also be able to walk and bike, and if they decide at that point they want to drive their car, they'd be able to do that as well. As it is now, people who want to walk or bike, they don't have the ability to go in with their car because they don't have that kind of a pass. So if there's any questions, I have Mr. Bragg Farmer, our finance director, who'd be happy to answer any of them.
Councilmember Morgan.
Thank you, Mayor. I think my only concern is encouraging people to walk or bike on Highway 98. It's kind of insane. But I do support this, so I move that the City Council authorize a change in Henderson Beach Insurance Program to include a reimbursement of $30 for residents who purchase a single or family Florida Park annual pass.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. Councilmember Dixon.
The way you phrased that doesn't sound quite right. It's my understanding that the way that citizens, they come in and they buy a $30 pass, and they can come and go as many times as they want to from the state park. Am I wrong about that?
Partially. The way that it's set up now is that they purchase the annual pass from Henderson State Beach Park, and they come in and we reimburse them $30 on that pass, and then they can come and go as they please all year.
We buy our passes here at the city. We buy our passes here.
The passes, you're correct. You come into the city hall and you purchase a pass from the city that's good from January through December to the entrance to Henderson Beach Park only. The change in this program is to allow citizens who buy a single entrance or family entrance pass to the state park, which would allow you to go to any park in the state, not just Henderson Beach. We would reimburse those citizens the $30 that they would have paid to purchase our pass.
Okay, so I want to make sure that everybody understands that the park pass to go into the Henderson Beach State Park, a citizen of Destin can get a pass to go and come as many times they want to for $30 a year.
That's correct. That's not changing. This is just a modification of the program because
and I agree with it, but I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that that didn't sound quite right.
Right.
You know, so okay.
That's not changing. You're correct.
Mr. Mayor, got a question?
Yes.
You no longer use decals on the windshields.
Yes, we do.
That is the pass.
Yeah.
No, well, that is the city pass, correct. And what we're doing is we're making it available for people. There are citizens in Destin that like to walk or bike to the Henderson Beach Park. Okay. We have to take a pass and laminate it, and we give that to them. And then that pass cannot be used for a drive-in. You can only use it to walk or bike in. And so to kind of satisfy that need, a citizen can go buy a pass at Henderson Beach that's good for all the state parks, and we'll reimburse them the $30 they would have paid for the annual pass, and that's what they would use in the future.
Bragg, how much is the annual pass if I was to buy it from the state of Florida?
A single pass is $60 and a family is $120.
I got you. Okay.
Further discussion? Councilmember Preble.
Okay, so now I have a question. So if somebody wants to ride their bike or walk into the park, they have to pay to do that? Somehow I missed that completely.
Well, if you don't have a city pass, you do have to pay.
So if they want to do it at a reduced rate, then they would have to come to the city to get a one-time pass to go. Oh, they wouldn't have to, but they would have that option because we're saying it's less expensive to do it through us?
No, it's if you buy a single pass, which is $60 at the state park, we're going to reimburse you $30. So your overall cost for that state pass for a single individual is $30, which is the same amount you would pay for that walk-in pass at City Hall.
Okay, I got you. So it's the same price whether you're on foot, bike, or motorized vehicle?
Correct, and that individual would be able to drive in now as opposed to just being able to walk in.
Wow.
And what we did is we also made this available to people who buy a family pass. We would reimburse them the $30. They would still pay more, but you also got to remember you can go to any Florida park statewide.
Thanks. Yeah, I kind of have a problem with people not being allowed to walk in, but that's not us, that's Henderson.
No, you can walk in.
But they're going to charge you.
Yes.
Yeah, that's, okay. You could walk in from another side and but I'm not going to go there. Okay, thank you.
Again, I think those rates are set by the state of Florida, not the city. Any further discussion?
I think I need to second it, unless there was somebody else.
Was there a second?
I'll second it either way.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Not seeing any, I call for the vote. Ms. Lejeune? Whoop, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Unanimous, yes?
The next item, sir, is our quarterly financial report, and Mr. Bragg Farmer, Finance Director, will give that to you.
And this report doesn't require any action. It's just an information report. Just let you know that we have finished the fiscal year as of the end of September 30th. We have completed our part of our audit where our auditors are in-house, and they're finishing that up, and that should come to you at probably the first meeting in March. But this is just a summation of the year's financial report. We actually received a little bit less revenue, and our spending was right down there with our revenue decrease. So it wasn't anything bad that we didn't receive from a revenue standpoint. It was just some grant money that's getting delayed until probably fiscal year 18. So we really received from a taxing standpoint, and all of our operating revenue sources were all pretty much in line with what we've done in the past. If you have any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer them. And then again, we'll have the actual audited report to you in March.
Questions, discussion? Not seeing any. Ms. Lejeune, you can carry on.
Yes, sir. The next item is the final report from the beach workshop, which the City Council held on June 6 of this year. It was a stakeholder workshop to address the issues and concerns that are related to our beach access and disputes between various stakeholders, beach rentals and vendors, emergency access, beach maintenance and cleaning, special events, and general recreational activity. After the workshop, there was a survey that was sent out to all of the attendees, and our facilitator, Erin LDDPA, who is also a certified land planner and lead AP. She specializes in environmental, local government, and land use law. She took the information that was gleaned from the surveys and did extensive studies on case law relating to these issues and put together a final report which is attached to this this agenda item for your review. The goal of the effort was to find the common ground among the stakeholders and common sense solutions and some level of regulation that could be policy decisions for the City Council. So City staff has taken the report, and we have taken the workshop discussion summary table as well as the other items in the report, and we looked at the scope and the viable alternatives. We believe from the report that there is community support for more policies related to beach access and use to mitigate disputes and conflicts. Emergency access and enhancing facilities were also supported by the survey participants. And overall public education and outreach program for the public and private users on beach rights were deemed to be helpful. There was a high level of interest for increased parking facilities. And in 2018, Florida legislative session may bring forward some state provisions on customary use, and customary use at the local level must be determined only by the courts on a case-by-case basis. So those being the highlights, we are recommending action items to the council in a short-term, intermediate, and long-term solutions. The solutions themselves, we can start now as council desires, and we have short-term is 0 to 2 years, and that indicates that it will probably take us at least 2 years to get this up and running and working. The intermediate, 2 to 5 years before the solution is implemented, and then of course the long-term is at least 5+ years. However, based upon the council's policy decision, we can start working on any or all of these immediately. We would ask that the council take these into consideration, and if you agree with the recommendations by staff, we would ask that you would accept the report and direct myself to move forward with the recommended action items. That said, if there's any action items that the council does not want us to go forward with, or if there are additional action items that the council would like to, at this time, recommend, that would need to go into the recommended motion, and then staff is ready to implement whatever is the council's desire.
Thank you. Council members, discussion?
Mayor, I'll make the recommended motion. I move to accept the City of Destin Beach Access Use Report and direct City Manager to move forward with the recommended action items.
Second. I have a motion. I have a second. Councilmember Ramswell.
I was just curious whether the federal hearing that was upheld, not the hearing, but the claim that was going through for Walton County, which the federal courts upheld, did that have any play into any of this, or is that anything that's being considered for future use and implementation?
If the land use attorney has any knowledge and can answer on that, but it is our understanding that there's no sweeping regulation available on customary use, that everything needs to be taken on a case-by-case basis when it comes to access to dry sand.
Thanks.
Scott, did you have a comment?
There was a favorable decision on customary use for the county in at least one of the cases. The others are pending, and I've spoken with the attorney for the county, and he's expecting that that will be appealed, so I would say it was favorable for the county, but it's not over yet.
Any further questions or discussions? We have a motion, we have a second. I call for the vote. Unanimous, yes. Ms. Lejeune?
Yes, sir. I have some announcements. Because of the Christmas holiday on December 25th, the residential bulk pickup will take place on Saturday, December 30th. We're asking that the residents please have their bulk pickup items by the curb no later than 6 a.m. the morning of December 30th, and then the regularly scheduled bulk pickup will resume again on January 8th. Also, city facilities will be closed on December 25th and 26th for Christmas, and we will be closed January 1st for the new year. The Christmas parade video is available on the city's YouTube channel. We ask that you visit our website at cityofdestin.com for the link. The Gulf Power annual tree trimming will begin in early January. Property owners with trees that will be trimmed will be noticed in advance by Gulf Power. And I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our new Community Development Director, Ms. Jennifer Breiler, who comes to us with years of experience and a great deal of knowledge regarding coastal communities. She has worked at St. Pete Beach for the past numerous years, and we are very, very blessed to have her here on staff with us.
Please stand up. Welcome.
And then my very last comment is that I would like to wish all of the citizens and businesses of Destin a very, very Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Again, we've moved 5A to after 6C, and we'll move to the public hearings portion of the meeting. Each of these items is open to the public to speak on, and we will call on you as we complete each item. If you'd like to speak, wave, stand up, just make certain I see you so we don't miss you on any of these items. You do not need a blue card. You just get my attention and can speak on any item. We'll begin with the first reading of Ordinance 1729 PC. Would you please read by title, sir?
Mayor, I'm going to have Ms. Cobb read all of them tonight, and my eye doctor's here. I'll be visiting him next month because I need to get my prescription up. So.
Ordinance number 17-29-PC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending Comprehensive Plan 2020, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for jurisdiction, providing for the adoption of a small-scale amendment to the Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map to include a change in future land use designation of a parcel of land from Bay Estates to low-density residential, providing for incorporation into the comprehensive plan, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Ms. Lejeune, further explanation?
I would like to turn this over to city staff, please. Our community director, Ms. Jennifer Breiler.
Okay, I got it. I am Jennifer Breiler, and this item is a small-scale citizen-initiated comprehensive plan amendment to allow for smaller lots than would be allowed in the Bay Estates community. I believe that this had gone to City Council in the past.
No.
No, I thought it's a privately initiated from Bay Estates to low-density residential, and that the lots, that the lots would be 75 feet by 100 feet instead of the 80 by 150. So it would result in lots that were adjacent to low-density residential and one that is remaining in Bay Estates. So I'm happy to try and answer any questions that you might have specifically to this comp plan amendment.
Is the applicant here?
And Mayor, this is a QJ, so the applicant now has a chance to put their case on, and then the council can question them at that point. So.
If you'll go ahead and approach the podium and
we'll stand up. Is anyone else going to be testifying with you, Mr. Steiner? Can both of y'all stand? Y'all swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help we God? Okay.
There's no other member of the audience that wishes to speak on this matter? Do you want to go ahead and swear?
Ms. Trim, are you going to be testifying or speaking as a member of the public? Okay, you don't need to be sworn in. And sir, are you going to be providing any actual testimony, or are you going to be just providing public comment on this matter? Public comment. Y'all don't need to be sworn in.
Okay. Please state your name and address after you turn the mic on.
Good evening. My name is Mark Seiner. I'm the president and owner of Choctaw Engineering. We're the agent for the applicant. And we've done this before, as mentioned. I think you're all very familiar with the site. It's a corner lot, a corner of Cross Street and Cybert Avenue. And we're back with the exact same request we came in a year ago. We would like to take the back half, or the north side of the piece of property, and we would like to change it from Bay Estates to LDR V. That will allow the property to be developed such that the 150 feet that basically faces Cross Street to be used as Bay Estates to have one single family home on it, and take the back half of the property and subdivide it into two pieces of property that will face Cybert Avenue, and they'll meet the 75 by 100 foot requirement. This is a 300 foot piece of property along Cybert. It's 100 feet along Cross Street, and we'd like to basically take advantage of the uniqueness of the piece of property, the fact that it sits on a corner lot, and be able to develop it in similar pattern as to preserve the Bay Estates frontage and also preserve the Cybert Avenue side with the same kind of development pattern that's coming down Cybert Avenue and the same kind of development that's on Bay Estates. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Councilmember Morgan.
Are we still receiving public comment? Because I better wait to speak until after.
Yeah, it'd be best to wait. Are you done, Mr. Steiner?
Yeah, maybe.
And do you have any cross-examination, Ms. Cobb? Okay, y'all can question Mr. Steiner now if you want.
No question.
No question?
I'll wait until after public comments closed.
Do you have any witnesses, Mr. Steiner, that you want to, does the applicant himself want to speak at all on the matter?
Just the owner, yes.
Okay. You're welcome to speak.
Can I speak at the end, or do I have to speak now?
You need to speak now.
This is the evidentiary portion.
My name's Josh Riker. I'm the owner of the property in question tonight. I'm a local builder. Kind of give a little history on the property. My father passed away about 10 years ago. Every time he drove by this piece of property, he said how much he loved it. He loved the trees on it. He loved the location. He always wanted to buy it. When I found out that it was for sale, I went to the person who had it for sale, talked to him. We came up with a price. I said, well, my offer is going to be contingent that I could split this into 3 lots. So after we went under contract, I went to the city and met with Hank Woolard. Ashley Grana was out of town on vacation, I believe. Went over everything, went through the process saying, down Cross Street, I'd like to leave everything Bay Estates, so the property on Bay Estate, or on Cross Street will stay Bay Estates. The part of the property that is on Cybert, about 85% of that road is low-density residential, so I'd just like to move that low-density residential halfway into my property. Hank said that everything I was talking about made sense. I didn't see any real issues with it. From there, I went hard on my contract, hired Mark Steiner as my engineer to go through the application process that we brought before you last year. Last year during the application process, we had the support of the staff. We went a 7-0 vote in front of the LPA. Our first meeting with the city council, we had a 5-2 vote approval. Unfortunately, in our second meeting, we had a 3-4 vote that disapproved it, which pretty much wiped out all the other votes. What I'm trying to do here is I don't think it's out of scale from anything in the neighborhood. In the previous meetings, there were a few things that were brought up. There was terms of spot zoning, the slippery slope. They were saying, Bay Estates runs from the Destin Bridge all the way over to Mattie Kelly. I've done research on some of this stuff. There are about 540 Bay Estate lots in Destin. Out of those, there are 3 lots that adjoin low-density residential that have the size or the road frontage that could be split the way that I'm asking. One of those is in wetlands, one's my property, and one is at the very end of Indian Trail. So if somebody comes up and starts saying all of a sudden that everything from the Destin Bridge is going to be affected all the way down to Mattie Kelly, it's truly 2 lots. It's my lot and one other piece of property. During that last meeting, there was a bunch of talk about spot zoning, saying, well, this is spot zoning, nobody can do this, you can't do this. Spot zoning, I believe, the city attorney at the time said it wasn't spot zoning. The new city attorney at the next meeting said it wasn't spot zoning. The previous city manager said it wasn't spot zoning. My engineer said it was spot zoning. I think, to clarify spot zoning, if I wanted to change that back half to a commercial piece of property and sell cars inside of a residential piece of property, that could be considered spot zoning. Extending a residential piece of property into a residential piece of property is within the zoning criteria of the property. You know, in that past meeting, I was blindsided by a fellow named Mick Parker, who said that he had tried to buy this property a few years before I did, and that he had asked for, he had went to the city to ask to see if this was a possibility. At that time, the city council was a little different. I believe he met with Ashley Grana. And he ended up making the decision not to buy this piece of property. I feel that at the last meeting with his friends and family that came, some of my votes turned, and I'm hoping I can get those back. I feel that whatever was said to Mick Parker, whatever happened to him, I don't understand how that is my issue. I don't understand how I'm the bad guy when I went to the city. I felt I did everything within the processes and procedures to do this, and in the end was denied because somebody else had a grievance with the city that I think that they should take with the city and not against me, and not against the neighborhood, and not against the support that I have from the neighborhood. I've got about a little over 42 or so signatures from people in the neighborhood. Everybody else always said, this makes sense. We'd love to have nice homes on this corner. I'd love to improve that corner a lot. Right now, people throw beer bottles and liquor bottles and all kinds of stuff on there. If anybody's driven down Snapper Drive, I recently built 4 houses on Snapper Drive in Destin on a 300-foot wide lot. I'm proposing to do 3 on this one that's 300 feet wide. That can give you kind of an idea of what it looks like. I enjoy and love Old Destin. I'm building my house right now in Old Destin. I've built about 10 houses in Old Destin. I would love to see it revitalized and renewed. I appreciate your time. If anybody has any questions for me.
Questions?
Any questions, Mr. Kopp?
No.
Any rebuttal evidence?
The focus for the council should be on the review criteria set forth in the agenda item. It is a legally sufficient request.
And before we end the evidentiary portion, Mayor, now does anyone from the public want to testify? Again, I'll offer that again. The difference between testifying and offering public comment, if you have actual knowledge of the actual property itself and you want to testify as this application process, that would be something you would testify to. If you just want to get up and talk about the zoning kind of in a general nature, then that's more of a public comment. So if you have personal knowledge in this case, this would be the time to talk about it. If not, we'll end the evidentiary portion. Is anyone out there? Okay. So I think we're done with the evidentiary portion, Mayor.
Would you like to allow council
questions? Yeah, you
can
council questions.
Councilmember Ramswell.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question. You said that when you brought this up before, you had spoken with someone and they had said, or you had said that your offer was contingent on it being made into 3 lots. Was that the seller, or who told you that? Or who did you tell that to?
The person who was selling the property.
Okay.
I made an offer contingent that I meet with the city to see if this is something that was a valuable option for the property. That's when I went and met with the city planners to find out if this was okay, if there were any reasons why it shouldn't happen, and was given the process and information about how to go forward, and was told that everything I was doing made sense.
Right, but you went ahead and purchased it without getting the approval, right?
I went to the city of Destin and talked to them and met with Hank. And when I got information from him, after that, I went forward with the purchase of the property.
Okay, so what you're asking tonight is essentially to be allowed to subdivide the lot and then to also change the zoning, correct?
The back half of the...
Just to clarify, the applicant would still be required to go through the subdividing process. He would not be subdividing the lot tonight via the future land use amendment or the rezoning. So that would be another process they would have to go through.
So you have Cross Street and Cybert. This is the property right here. I would leave this 100 by 150 as it sits in Bay Estates. I would change this back half to low-density residential. If you look at this map, this is the property right here. So this is Cybert. All this is low-density residential. All of this is low-density residential. So when you go down Cross Street, all the zonings and the fronts of the houses will all look the same. As you come down Cybert, these two lots will be slightly bigger than the lots that are right next to it, but it will sit with all the same low-density residential that's all the way around it. So I'm not trying to change anything. I'm not trying to change anything. Like, I'm not trying to buy this and subdivide it into low-density residential. I'm trying to continue the actual flow and developmental pattern into my property.
Of course, just playing devil's advocate here, doesn't that depend on perspective? I mean, if you're driving down Cross, then it is going to look different, right? Because that end section, now instead of one lot being similar to the others in Bay Estates.
On Cross Street, this will be 100 feet wide, just the same as it was 100 feet wide before. So when you go down Cross Street, every lot's going to be 100 feet wide.
Correct, but the lot that is, I guess, what is the one to the left of your, yeah, is that 804 Cross?
I guess. I don't
So 804 Cross, though, is still going to have just one home or one building on it, whereas you at 802, if you're going to, ultimately your goal is to have 3 separate lots and one long one, you might have 3.
Right. I mean, this is a corner lot, so normally, you know, on the houses, you see the house sitting up front, and they have, you know, a large backyard, which you don't see from the road because the house is in the way. So the developmental pattern should stay the same because you'll see a house on a wide piece of property from the road.
Right. I see what you're saying. I'm trying to be consistent, and as I've said in 2015, 2016, when this has come forth, I understand your goals, and I know you want to make the most of your buck and really follow in your father's dreams. But my concern is buying a piece of property, knowing what it's zoned, knowing what the surrounding lots and area is zoned, and then wanting to change it. And I think one of the questions that was brought up at the meeting that was in May 16th, 2016, where it was voted down, was what's to keep 804 Cross and 806 Cross from trying to do the same thing.
Geography.
And
geography keeps that from happening. Because there are literally only 3 lots that this can be done to.
Well, they're all the same length.
No, but they don't have 300 foot of frontage on another street. They only have 100 foot of frontage on Cross Street. They don't share 300 foot of frontage on Cybert. So it's really just a geometry issue. Sorry.
And I think you had brought that up before,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, there's not many vacant lots left in Destin.
Right.
So the actually likelihood of somebody coming in and buying big homes or other homes and then cutting them down so that they could put extra lots in there, I mean, you can theorize it and say, sure, but the reality is that's not going to happen.
So,
I mean, could somebody come and buy all these houses and try to do that? I guess, but it wouldn't work, and it's not going to happen.
So then I guess my third comment question is, we've already talked about 2 changes, the subdivision and then the zoning. But further, in order to make those 2 lots, you're actually also requesting that they go below the required 80 feet across, right? So you now also want them to be 75.
When they become low-density residential, it's 75 by 100, which these meet. The lots right next door are 72 by 103.
So that's because Bay Estates requires them to be 80 feet?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Bartlett.
I'm sorry. I'll give you to Duffy.
Councilmember Dixon.
You mentioned earlier that your father, when he drove by there and saw all the nice trees and everything else, is the fact that we want to do everything we can to protect as many trees as possible. And you know what we've been through with trees here lately in the city. And so I don't I don't know how many trees would have to be removed from this piece of property to be able to build these homes, but I do want us to be able to take that in some kind of consideration, and I hope you do as well.
Yes, sir. I think the value in that property, when you put a home on it, are the trees. That corner lot house is going to look amazing when you trim up these oaks. Not the person that I bought the property from, but the person that person bought it from, clear cut the back half that I'm talking about and stored boat trailers and boats and stuff like that on there. So that, on the back 2 lots that I'm wanting to re-subdivide, I would say about, I mean, unfortunately, 80% of that was clear cut so they could store stuff there. The majority of it's all on the other part that's staying in Bay Estates, but that would stay in Bay Estates.
Okay, all I'm saying is there's a lot of beautiful trees there on that corner.
I want to do everything
I'm hoping that we can keep the majority of them.
Yes, sir.
And another question, I guess, for our land use attorney. Is there a, you know, I think one of the issues that I kind of have with this, and by the way, I am going to support this, but one of the issues I have is the fact that we're going to put, I know on those 2 smaller lots, going to be 2-story homes. Am I correct?
No, sir.
Are we going to do single story on all 3?
Yes, sir.
Okay, are we?
There'll be single stories on the back 2. The front one, I have a plan that I'm looking at that would be the majority single story, and there would be a loft over the garage.
Okay, so basically we're going to try to keep the neighbors in mind as fact that behind you, when they build a home.
The floor plan I did over on Snapper Drive, if anybody's seen it, is an incredible floor plan. We changed up the elevations, and it fits on those lots, and they're...
So you're going to do what you can to make single-story homes there?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
No further questions from council. Councilmember Russell, go ahead.
I have a question for our land use attorney. The density in Bay Estates is 2.9, I believe, or whomever I should be addressing this to. I'm not sure if you're fully up to speed, so I apologize, whoever. But if we pursue your dream and go with what you're asking, now the density jumps to 5.81, which is more than double what it is currently with Bay Estates. So then there's my other concern is, and I know you just said, of course, we can't hold you to, oh, he said he's going to do 1 story. I mean, you can do whatever it ends up suiting your purpose and is within the allowable constraints. But obviously that's another concern too, that it's going to become something that is way beyond the current allowable density and does look out of place on 3 lots that you're creating.
I have the plans for these, and I promise you, those are the ones I plan on using, and it'll be 3 homes. I mean, it can't be any more. That's why the gentleman that I guess had thought about doing this a couple years ago that I didn't even know at the time, it's documented that when Rodney Braden was going to be his legislative sponsor to do it, that he was changing the entire thing to low-density residential, which would have made it 4 pieces of property. I'm trying to do it differently so I can preserve Cross Street and what it looks like there, and then everything on Seibert will look normal as well because it's going to match the current developmental pattern. Right now, I would say, when I measured it out the other day, about 85% of Seibert is low-density residential, and the only piece back there that's not. So I'm trying my best to make this fit, and
I want to help you, but I'm trying to make sure I'm doing the right thing so that anybody that comes up here and has a similar lot and wants to do the same thing, that we're just as equitable and just as fair to everybody. And sure. I apologize if I sound like I'm being overly harsh, but I'm a stickler for details and trying to make sure everything, square peg.
When I did the research, there's only 1 other property, and it is large enough to split by itself without changing anything under Bay Estates. It's a big, rounded piece of property at the very end of Indian Trail, and that's the only other piece that adjoins low-density residential so that you wouldn't be changing something in the middle of a zoning and has the size requirements or the road frontage.
Thank you.
Councilmember Marler.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Ramswell, have you gone by there and looked at the parcel
I did last year when this came up. I
Okay,
haven't
well,
recently.
the reason, so what he's trying to do is, there's already single families along that Seibert, and you're just adding 2 more beside that. The part where it's the Bay Estates, it's on the corner, it will still be deep, and pretty much there's gonna be a fence at that corner if the house is gonna face the Bay Estates. So, you know, that's part of it, and I've been living around that area for many years, and I don't have a, I had reservations the last time, and I, you know, apologize to the gentleman because I did vote no against my own will, but I just had some more questions. This time I think they've done the research and done the right thing, so I don't have a problem with it.
If I see no further questions, shall move to public discussion. Would the members of the public that would like to speak on this matter start coming forward? Let's start with you, sir. Again, any member of the public, as you come up to speak, no need in repeating what anybody before you has already said. If you agree with them, you can simply state, I agree with the previous speaker, and it'll save us a little time, and we'll note it. Thank you.
My name is Mike Rame. I happen to be his eye doctor, just so you know. We'll take care of him next month. Just for the point of interest, I think it's very important. This is a beautiful lot. I even looked at that lot with my son-in-law to possibly purchase it, going back several years. I believe the plan that the gentleman has here, Mr. Riker, is extremely sensitive to the trees. The trees are going to be preserved. I run by that lot just about every day during the week, and I've seen what it was. It used to be a dump for old pilings. It was rabble. It was trash. It was derelict boats, and those have since been removed. It was clear cut on the back, but they did leave a buffer of trees around there, which I think will remain to a great degree. I think you will be pleasantly pleased, and you will see the city coffers increase because you'll have 3 houses here within the next 1.5 to 2 years going to be built there, and they're going to be paying taxes, and they're going to beautify this neighborhood. I feel like it's been a blight on our area. I will say this, I was a bit disheveled when this did not pass. I didn't come for the second reading the last time. I thought it was, quote unquote, in the bag. And I've learned not to just do this. And I believe, to answer your question, you made a comment about the 2.9. If you calculate the number of square footage, 100 by 150 is 15,000 square feet. That is more than 1/3 of an acre. That exceeds the 2.9. It's 2.9 per acre is the Bay Estate. So you will still meet that standard, and I think that's what the land use people are going to tell you. I happen to be a surveyor from growing up, so I've come from that area, one of my many other things, but I think it's important. I think this is the best product that you can get for this. I'm excited to see it because Mr. Riker builds some really nice homes. Every home he's built in this community has been sold, and it's occupied by families, and that's what we want. I've got nothing more to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Good evening. Merry Christmas. My name is Patrick Paulus. I live at 528 Seibert Avenue. I just have one little conflict with this gentleman here because of that shirt he's wearing, but I'll let it go. You brutalized us this year. You won fair and square. Anyway, over the last couple of years, I know this is, or the last year or so with this property, Mr. Riker I met when he was asking the neighbors if we even wanted it. And before that, the lot, as this Mr. Tuffy explained, has some beautiful trees, and it does. And I'm sure he'll do what's necessary to protect some. Most of it's scrub. I did 15 years line clearance for aspen, so I know good trees, bad trees, and all that. Aspen says there is no good tree, just like that. Fair enough. But in that, unfortunately, in that time, whoever owned the property before Mr. Riker bought it, they clear cut most of all the stuff in that lot, especially on the back end. They came in with chainsaws and everything and just clear cut it. So then they started dumping all kinds of stuff in there. And ever since then, the lot's been empty. People dump some stuff there once in a while. But on top of it, the neighbors behind it now use it as a thoroughfare and shoot out into Seibert Avenue, not looking at all, and dart back in there And that's not what it's there for. You've got a driveway, you go out your own driveway. Just my personal thought. But I'm the one that would be most affected by most of this, because the two homes on Seibert would be at my property, or looking at my property, I'll be looking at them, whichever. It's sat empty for a long time. It's a beautiful neighborhood. They're building right around the corner in that subdivision. And I really believe that we need to do something with this lot. And I think with putting two homes, if you come down Seibert Avenue, it's small homes, small homes, small homes, and that would line up with that. And then Cross Street, the homes facing out into Cross Street is crying. Mr. Marlar pointed out. I forgot your name. I'm sorry about that, Mr. Marlar, but I'm not doing very well. But anyway, I think it would only add to the neighborhood. Again, I really don't know Mr. Riker, but he's a small businessman like I am, and I'm glad to be working in the area here as a small businessman. And I've seen the homes he's built. He builds nice homes. I think it would only add to the neighborhood. And I just would like to see something done there, and I think he's got a great proposal to do it. And I think when we go back to the meeting in May 16, or in May during 2016, I really think that one of the arguments that came up from some of the council members about traffic, if we added the three, I believe it was brought up, 3 lots in the entire Bay subdivision that could be done like this, that would be 6 additional homes only, because you would build at least 1 home on that lot already. So that takes 3 away. And I can't see that that many homes would add as much traffic that would bring up a concern to the council when we built an awful lot of other big stuff, like the apartment complexes in Henderson Beach, and I'm sure we'll build some others where Holiday Inn was, and that will increase traffic. So I don't think some families in this community, like the one that's just down around the corner that Mr. Riker built that has a nice family in it, is a bad thing. I think we need more families in here in homes, and I appreciate your time. And roll Eagle.
Thank you. Next. I know we all know your name, but please state it and give us your address.
Don't have to read. Sandy Trammell, Bay Estates resident, and I live on Indian Trail currently, and I built my home across from the homes you just built on Snapper. And so we've been here a long time. And I guess I'll just make it short. One of the things that I heard him bring up, I had not seen the plan that he had done, but one of the things I heard him bring up was the house that was going to be on the corner had a loft. So guess what that means? 2 families on that house. 2 families on that lot now. So part of what council needs to look at in the future and today is that we're not increasing the north side of 98 after you're decreasing the south side of 98. So please, please, please do whatever's necessary to make sure that doesn't happen, because that's where we're going with this. He's only the first, and yes, the homes are quality, but we're not here to testify to his quality of build. We're here to talk about the zoning. Personally, as a resident, I want to know that where I live is going to stay zoned the same way. That's the thing that we have to keep, and that's the integrity that as a council we need to look at. We can't turn around and keep changing periodically here and there and everywhere. When you bought the property, this is what it was zoned. You knew what you could do with it with this zoning. And yes, anybody can apply to rezone, but people need to know that even if they apply, what they're living in is going to stay the same. And that's where it concerns me. So I'm saying to vote no to both 6A and B, because they're both important. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak? Not seeing any, I'll return.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Todd, and I just want to say that I totally agree with what Sandra just said. It was subdivided, and it needs to stay the way it is. So I commend her for her comments, and I support her comments 100%. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, anyone else? Wave your hand. Don't let me miss you. Okay, we'll go back to the council for any further discussion the council may have or a recommended motion. Mr. Marler?
I have one quick item. I mean, the way I see it is this: if we leave it the way it is, you're going to get a mega house in place of what he's trying to do. The corner lot is unique. And that actually, every corner lot in this town is unique. You'd actually look, so if you use a corner lot, it looks like you got more land than you normally would because of the way that they usually do the right-of-way. Because the other houses on that back side where he's got those, where he wants to subdivide, they're all in line, they all look the same, and it'll enhance to me the two houses on that side, you know, two more lots on that side. It doesn't change Bay Estates in the facial front where the house, the front of the house is going to be. So that's the thing I look at and consider, you know, when I do this. And like I said, I voted what I considered the right way at the last meeting, but after looking at the property longer and longer, and also what this gentleman has done, and I live around the corner from Snapper, so I know that the houses that he built over there are really good, and I think they're all sold, if I'm correct. And that wasn't that, you know, there's 4 more residents, so we're looking at 2 more families that can buy some homes. So I have no objection, and if I can find that recommendation, I will make it. I think I got it right here. I think. Hold on. Yeah, I do need it because I didn't.
Mr. Mayor, I'll be glad to make a recommended motion.
Okay, Teffy can do it, and I'll second. How's that?
I move the City Council approve ordinance 17-29-PC on first reading and direct staff to schedule a second reading for final adoption.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion. We have a second. Councilmember Ramsell.
I have a question / a comment. I'm struggling with this, and I want you to know that I would like to learn more about your plans and what's going on, because I get a feeling that we'll be going towards a second hearing on this. So I would like to learn more about what you're doing.
Any further discussion? Not seeing any, I call for the question. Six yes, 1 no. Whoop. I can't count, can I? Rodney's not here. 5 yes, 1 no. Thanks for keeping me straight.
The doctor's out in the audience for the glasses right now.
There'd be a lot of cobia that wishes you wouldn't fix his eyes, by the way. First reading of ordinance 1730 LC. Mr. Burns.
Ordinance number 17-30-LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending the official zoning map as referenced in the Land Development Code Section 7.12.01A2 zoning maps to include a change in the zoning designation of the easterly 150 feet of 802 Cross Street, Destin, Florida, from Bay Estates to low-density residential village, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for jurisdiction, providing for zoning map amendment, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Mayor, we're here on another QJ, and the evidence is going to be almost identical to what you just heard. And at the LPA meeting, we actually combined the two together and heard it all at once. If staff and the applicant have no issues and the council doesn't have an issue, then y'all could recognize that the evidence submitted in the previous hearing, the testimony will be similar, and that way you don't have to retread the same issues again. And if that's fine with you, Mr. Steiner, could you just state that for the record? And Mr. Riker, could you also just say you're okay with that if you're okay with not rehashing the same evidence again? So.
Yeah, once again, it's Mark Steiner, Choctaw Engineering, agent for the applicant, and we find that acceptable as far as the evidence goes. Yes.
And Mr. Riker, we used to do the same too.
My name is Josh Riker. I'm the owner of the property, and I accept that.
And is that fine with staff too, to not have them testify to the same stuff they just covered?
Yes, as long as council understands that there's also additional information, of course, in the agenda item for the rezoning.
And I would, if they're okay with that, I'll have y'all explain that in a second. Just are y'all okay with not rehearing the same evidence again?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Now staff will do their presentation.
Staff doesn't have anything additional other than what's in the agenda item.
There'll be no evidence.
Oh, no, the evidence, everyone just stipulated on the record that what happened
remains the same, okay.
There was a
No
comp plan
additional
amendment
evidence.
on the first ordinance. This is a change to the future land use map, and so, am I correct on that? And
This is the rezoning?
It is the rezoning, so it's going to be the same evidence, just a different part of the process.
Okay. We do need to open for public comment, though. Any further public comment on this item? No further comment from council? If not,
I'll make the recommended motion if you need it.
yes, please.
Okay. I move that City Council will approve ordinance 17-30-LC on first reading and direct staff to schedule a second reading for final adoption.
Second. I have a motion. I have a second. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. I call for the vote. 5 yes, 1 no. Did I count that right? First reading of ordinance 1716 LC, mobile vending regulations. Mr. Burns?
Ms. Kopp?
Oh, Ms. Kopp, I'm sorry.
This is ordinance number 17-16-LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida relating to mobile vendors, creating section 7.21.00, regulating mobile vendors, establishing zoning and locational requirements, regulating parking, maintenance, displays, and signage for mobile vendors, providing for additional regulations and prohibitions for mobile vendors, providing for enforcement, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, conflicting provisions, severability, and an effective date.
Again, this is a public hearing.
This is quasi-legislative, Mayor, so the staff can do their presentation, then y'all can hear public comment.
Ms. Kopp, any further comment from staff?
You all have heard the mobile vending ordinances before you tonight previously, so unless you have questions, the information is in the staff report, and staff is here as well as myself to answer your questions.
Questions by council, or would you prefer to go to public hearing and then we'll go back to council? Public, okay. Okay, any comments from the public? Anyone like to comment on this item? Not seeing any. Councilmember Ramswell?
I just had a question. What has changed since we last saw this? Because it was kind of hard to pinpoint differences.
I don't believe anything has changed since you last saw it, other than the provision related to noise was deleted because you have since passed a noise ordinance that would apply anyway. Yeah, that's it. Nothing else has changed.
Okay. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Further comment? Please, sir.
Ms. Kopp, about, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, there was a vendor that was, I guess you would call grandfathered into the current regulations, or grandfathered in at the time. It's a small company that sells ice cream, just different places. Does this affect that grandfather clause in any way?
That grandfather clause is in the right-of-way protection provision of the LDC, so this ordinance doesn't affect that grandfather clause at all.
Thank you.
If there's no discussion, could I have a motion?
I'm sorry. The map, I can't read it. That was included in the packet. It's not legible. So I don't know where food trucks are allowed to operate. Page 160 of 191. And 161, I mean, I can see some, oh, I got you.
Listen at the acceptable long-term use and then the short-term use. Long-term operations on, let's see, yeah, 156.
Yeah, a map would help.
Yeah, it would. There's the longer term, longer than 2 hours, just it's
Yeah, that makes sense.
and then that's the short-term investments all.
Okay, short-term operations, does that include Ace Hardware, Barbary Coast on Main Street? Without seeing the map, I can't tell you what its zone is, if anybody knows.
Steve is going to come up and answer the question for you.
Thank you, sorry. Main Street.
The short-term operations are allowed basically in the same 2 districts as the long-term, which is the South Harbor mixed use and Calhoun mixed use, but they're also allowed in the North Harbor mixed use, which is the north side of 98 in the Harbor District. Commercial trades and services, industrial, institutional, residential, office, and institutional general development.
I read
So-
that. I just need to look at the future land use map, I guess, because the one provided in our packet's not clear. So it's hard for me off the top of my head to tell you which properties are in which zoning.
We're going to work on that moving forward. Do you have an address?
Because I don't want to vote on this unless a certain area is included on the map. And I don't think it is because it wasn't last time. And if nothing changed, then that hasn't been fixed. And I don't think anybody on the council would have an issue with a food truck setting up at Ace Hardware for lunch. Shoot.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. If they want to, if a food truck just wants to go in and set up for 3 or 4 hours because, let's just say, a barber shop tries to get them to come in and so they can promote their business a little bit, are we talking about trying to do away with those type things, or are we talking about trying to do away with where they're going to be there every Tuesday and Thursday kind of thing? The reason I say that is because, you know, we're talking about sometimes some special events to where they may want to bring in a food truck to be able to feed the people that work there or whatever it may be. And I don't want to take away from them being able to do something like that. So, you know, I want to make sure that whatever we're doing here, we're not taking away the ability of our small businesses to promote their business and to be able to bring people in that, you know, buy something like this, that something for their employees, something for the local businesses, or something like that. So I just don't want to make sure that we're not over-regulating this so much that we're basically putting people out of business. And when I say that, that could be the food truck vendors, or not allowing our local businesses to be able to advertise their business or whatever it may be. And that can be anything from a hot dog truck to a full food vending truck. So, you know, I just want to make sure that we're not clamping down on this so hard that we're going to have people breaking our ordinance or whatever it may be just to go set up for a couple of hours during lunch someplace. So
the short-term operations, which is what you're describing, really cover most of the commercial and trade service areas in the city by including not just the South Harbor mixed use and the Calhoun mixed use, which is available for the long term, but also including the North Harbor mixed use, which is all the commercial on the north side of US 98, commercial trades and services, industrial, institutional, residential, office, and institutional general development. This actually is an expansion of our current code because, frankly, right now, mobile vending is not really allowed in the city. It's not covered under the code and is specifically excluded from all the rights of way. So this is actually an expansion of area for mobile vendors that really is not in the current code.
Mr. Schmidt, I believe the location Ace, is town center mixed use, correct? And I don't see that on here.
It is.
No, that's correct, and it's not including the Ace Hardware. Now, specifically, if you're talking about specifically the Ace Hardware,
Just town center.
Placement of a short-term vendor there would actually probably violate their parking, because I don't think they have sufficient.
Well, I don't think it would violate the parking of Barbary Coast.
I'm not familiar with Barbary
Office
Coast.
Park just south of there. But yeah, so I would like to include town center mixed use in this, and then have the staff send it back to us. So I'll make that a motion.
Second.
I'd like to include town center mixed use for short-term operations.
Second that.
We have a motion, we have a second. Councilmember Ramswell.
I actually have a follow-up question. There are vendors that pull up, for example, along Old 98 and sell wares and food and such. I don't see that on here either. Is that an area we're specifically excluding?
Are you talking about in the right-of-way?
And the right-of-way pulled up in driveways of vacant lots, I mean, everywhere?
No, those are not included, and that would not be permitted under this code.
No further discussion? Call for the vote.
Can you read what's the motion? Continue it.
Karen, we're adding town center mixed use as an allowable district for short-term operations, and they're going to bring it back to us with that change only. Everything else stays the same.
Yep. Discontinued. I call for the vote. Unanimous, yes. We have the first reading of the ordinance 17-28-LC. Ms. Kopp, would you read by title?
Are we going to do ordinance 1715 CC, which is the other mobile vending ordinance? I know that got moved.
Oh, I'm sorry, got to bring 5A. I'm sorry, 5A is being brought down to 6C and a half, I guess, because we already have a D. So we will move to that. Please.
Okay. Ordinance 1715-CC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida relating to mobile vending, providing for the creation of Chapter 13, Article 9, mobile vending permits, defining mobile vendor, requiring a non-transferable permit for mobile vending, providing a process for permit applications, providing for revocation of permits, providing for incorporation into the Code of Ordinances, conflicting provisions, severability, and an effective date.
Discussion? Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I'll make the recommended motion. I move that City Council approve ordinance 17-15 CC on first reading and direct staff to schedule a second reading for final adoption. I want to make sure that's the right one because that sounds familiar.
Does this need to come back to us too because of my change in the previous one?
I think this is just dealing with the actual vehicles and stuff. And permit.
Ms. Kopp, that is correct?
Correct. This is just no zoning. This is just for the permitting.
Good. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. Discussion? Seeing none, I call for the question.
Mayor, I'm going to need to abstain. I have a mobile truck in the South Harbor District.
Okay.
No.
One abstention, 5 yes. Motion passes. Excuse me, 1728 LC by title.
Ordinance 1728-LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida relating to medical marijuana, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for an amendment to Land Development Code Section 3.00.01, definitions, providing for an amendment of Land Development Code Section 7.12.06, zoning districts, Table 7-2, Table of Allowable Uses, providing for incorporation to the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Ms. Lejeune, further description?
We had previously come back before council to let them know that the state had indeed put together legislation that gave us the regulatory framework that we were looking at. It says that if the city wants to have a medical marijuana treatment center dispensing facility within the city, then we need to treat these just as if they were other pharmacies, like a Walgreens or CVS. So what this is doing on first reading is permitting them as a use in the same zoning district as pharmacies.
Yes.
Ms. Lejeune, you said just a minute ago that if we want to have, that's a little different than want to allow. So I don't mean to be, I'm not trying to nitpick. I'm not
absolutely right, and I apologize. Yeah. So if you want to allow.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'll be glad to make the recommended motion whenever you're ready. All right, I move that City Council approve ordinance 17-28-LC on first reading and direct staff to schedule a second reading for final adoption.
We have a motion, we have a second. Further discussion?
Mayor, real quick, this is a public hearing, so.
It is, yes. Please, sir.
My name is Mark Robertson again. I've spent over 10 years being a substance abuse counselor. I have a postmaster's certificate in substance abuse counseling. I completed a one-year internship at 12 Oaks in Navarre, which is a 30-day inpatient substance abuse counseling. About your ordinance, I mean, medical marijuana does have some advantages in the sense that you really can't OD on it like you can on opioids. It's less addictive. But when you do your zoning, I live in Keller Gardens, about 200 yards from where the strip club was going to be in, and then I really like the Feed the Hungry Children ministry. There's talk about putting a marijuana dispensary in that industrial area. I'd have you know that there's a Hispanic church that meets there. There's a Destin laundry business. It's a family business that they have young children that play. When you consider your zoning ordinance, I'd like you to consider such things as impaired judgment. Back there's less lighting. There's not, the turning radiuses are tighter. There's not a full stop sign when you come. It is hard to test an impaired judger when they mix. It's easy to do a breathalyzer with pharmaceuticals. I've been a victim impact speaker for MAD since 1998. I've been an emergency room chaplain in a level 1 trauma center. I know how catastrophic and impaired judgment, and it's not just driving while intoxicated. You think you can cross the street without looking both ways. There's other issues there, so I would ask that you put in more than just zoning that a pharmacy, but consider traffic safety. I would like you to consider lighting. I would like you to consider sidewalks. I would like that there actually be a look-see and see what else is going around there. Because just an area that is well lighted with a lot of space for someone that if their judgment is impaired because of chronic pain or because they've over-medicated, that there would be a margin of error before someone would crash and get hurt would be my request. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment?
Lisa Robertson, I live in Keller Gardens also. It has been prior discussed by the council of putting that marijuana dispensary in that industrial park. As my husband stated, there's a Hispanic church in that strip mall right there. There is a bus stop 200 feet from there, across from your city park. There is 7 churches in that area. There is a veterinarian clinic in that area, and it is a total community. It is not a place to put a medical marijuana dispensary. And my question to the council would be, would you want that in your backyard? Thank you.
Thank you. Please, sir.
I think what they're speaking of is back whenever this originally came about, we had originally put this because we were told that we had to allow it at that time. We put it in the industrial park, or we said we would put it in the industrial park because we were basically trying to get it out of sight and everything else. With this is basically going to be, the way I understand it, if you can put in a drugstore in that location, you could also put this in as well. Personally, I don't think there's any of them going to come here anyway, but that's what it would be allowed to do. No longer are we saying that you're going to have to put it in industrial park, so that part of it, in my opinion, is going away. So just so everybody knows, we took it away from there, and we're saying now if you want to open one, or if you got to open one, then we have to do it where you would have a regular drugstore. And the security on those things, from what I read and everything else, is more so than any drugstore out there.
Any further discussion? Again, though, the state has reduced the city's ability to regulate location of these greatly. As I understand it, we have to follow the state statutes.
And 70% of the people voted to allow this to be used as medicine.
That is correct. Further discussion? We don't have a motion, do we? Yes. Got a motion? And a second? I see no further discussion. I call for the vote. One no, 5 yes. We have the second reading of ordinance 1731 CC. Ms. Kopp.
Ordinance 17-31-CC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida relating to Joe's Bayou Boat Ramp Area, boating safety zones, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for amendment of the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 5, Boats, Harbors, and Waterways, Article 2, Restricted Areas, Joe's Bayou. Section 5-29, Findings of Fact, Section 5-30, Definitions, Section 5-31, Restricted Areas, Section 5-32, Prohibited Activity, Section 5-33, Regulatory Markers, Section 5-34, Penalty, Establishing Boating Restrictions, Regulations for the Joe's Bayou Boat Ramp Area, Establishing an idle speed no wake zone adjacent to the Joe's Bayou Boat Ramp Area, Providing for penalties, providing for codification, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Ms. Lejeune, further?
Yes, sir. Council had previously expressed a desire to establish an idle speed / no wake zone in the waters that are immediately adjacent to the city's boat launching facility, otherwise known as Joe's Bayou Boat Launch. So by approving this on second reading, it would be the beginning of a multi-step process which is administered by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. We would then be able to go ahead and file for permit for review, and it usually takes a minimum of 42 days for the FWC review. The permit, once approved by FWC, would allow us to place and maintain waterway markers establishing the boundaries of the boating restriction area adjacent to Joe's Bayou.
This is also a public hearing. Does any member of the audience wish to speak on this matter? Anyone? Council?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Dixon?
Okay. I'm sorry, I've made all the motions tonight. I'm going to continue to go in here. I move to approve and codify ordinance 17-31-CC on second reading and instruct staff to move forward with the remaining FWC permitting requirements. Then I have a comment, if you don't mind.
I'll second that, Duffy.
We have a motion, we have a second discussion. Councilmember Dixon?
I want to make sure that when FWC does come and take a look at this thing, that they're not looking at this thing in January. Okay, so I just want to make sure that we provide them numbers from our launching facility, how many boats we're launching in and out of there in the summertime at any given day. And I want to make sure that, like I said, we're not doing traffic counts in January on our waterways. So please keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Not seeing any, I call for the vote. 6 unanimous yes. We'll move to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt or comment?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion to approve, a second. Further discussion? Any other council member? If not, I call for the vote. Mr. Marler? Unanimous, yes. We're now to the comment section by council. Councilmember Braden is not with us tonight, so we'll start with Councilmember Ramswell.
I just wanted to say how much I enjoyed the Christmas parade. I swear it gets bigger every year. So it was wonderful to see everybody out there. I know we were all freezing to death, but we had a great time. And I think, I know for sure that the kids that were involved had a great time. They were running down the street and they got so hot they were stripping, and we're still trying to find coats to add on to be warm. But thanks to everybody that came out. I think everybody had a great time. And Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Councilmember Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor. I was not able to make the Christmas parade this year, but I heard it was fantastic, and we'll try to make it next year. A couple of things that I want to say tonight is, you know, I kind of am very quick to say when I'm not pleased about some of the way things are going with the city, but let me say this, that the paving that's being done on the work that's being performed out for our retention stuff, for our drainage stuff, the people that are doing that paving are doing an awesome job. They really are. They're doing a very, very good job. Whenever I see that, and I know sometimes things don't go 100% great, but then you come in and you see a job like that and the way they do it, and I'm just so pleased with that. So just know that I want to maybe get their number, and maybe we want to talk to them a little further for the future, because they're doing a fantastic job with the paving. And I don't know if that's got anything to do with the general contractor. I know they hired them to do it, but they're doing a very good job. And the next thing I want to say is Merry Christmas to everyone, and thank you for everything.
Councilmember Foreman.
Yeah, I want to thank the chamber for the weather today. Yeah. And I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas.
Councilmember Marler.
I too enjoyed the parade, and where else can you see half the city in the parade and the other half watching? Because that's about what it seems to be a lot, and it gets bigger every year. Also, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone. And I just want to clarify one thing. On the vote that we just took on the medical marijuana treatment, my personal opinion is very simple. I know it helps people out and things like that, but that's exactly how other states, that's how they get their foot in the door, and that to me is, until it's regulated a little bit better, I just can't go for it. But I wanted to clarify my no vote. And finally, again, I'm just happy to be here and alive these days, and yeah, and the weather was awesome today at the end of the day. I liked it.
Councilmember Destin.
Nothing tonight, Mayor, other than Merry Christmas.
Councilmember Morgan.
Merry Christmas. Kyron, you got any singing engagements coming up?
Not yet, but getting
Christmas
working on
Eve?
It. Well, Christmas Eve at church.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I'm just going to add to the Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Ms. Kopp.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Mr. Burns.
Yeah, regarding the marijuana ordinance, I guess now we had an ordinance that was more restrictive before, pushing it into the industrial zoning area, and now we've lined it up with the state statute, which will allow it in any pharmacy areas. there is an issue now. Now we actually have a zoning scheme that's more liberal than the state scheme, because now it's going to be allowed in all the pharmaceutical areas plus the industrial area. And so I didn't bring it up because I think y'all want to go and get the current ordinance lined up with the state statute, but you might want to consider directing staff, if you don't want it in the industrial area, to remove that designation at this point in time. And Merry Christmas.
Can you build a drugstore in the industrial park area?
Not according to this. So I'm looking at the map right now, or I'm looking at the zoning right now.
Okay. So it wouldn't be allowed in industrial per the chart in the ordinance.
Correct.
So that's what we just voted on, right?
Well, but now the way what'll happen, it's allowed both, and it'll still remain in that section in the industrial area. Oh, you took it out?
I thought it's been taken out of the
good.
industrial.
Okay, good.
We have finally reached the audience participation section of our meeting. Any member of the audience who would like to speak, please come forward. All right, we're going to start with the lady in the pretty red sweater, then we'll move back. You can be next.
Oh, okay. I'm Sue Regan. I live at 806 Spanish Moss Trail in Kellaire, and I appreciate being able to speak tonight. As I stated before, I'm usually in jail on Monday night, so I won't be able to address you on this issue again. As I was driving around town today, something just suddenly, this light went on in my brain about an issue that arose during elections last year, and I would like to address that with you. I have a list of questions for Mayor Fisher and for the council members. I have them printed out if you'd like to take them with you and give an answer later. I don't think there's time right now. But what came into my mind was this article that appeared in the Northwest Florida Daily News on March 3rd, February 3rd, 2016, who contributed to Destin candidates, and it gave a list. A concern that came up at the time was that there was one concern who donated substantial amounts of money to certain candidates. And at the time, we were wondering, like, why does this person think that these candidates need an extra $3,000 in a race that normally takes less than $1,000 to run? The research on the companies, they were Lexington-based, all of them, Southern Coast LLC, Crimson Coal Company, and Crimson Management Corporation. And the primary person in each one of these companies is a man named David L. Bobo. He has a condo here on Gulf Shore Drive. And doing some research into his activities and the activities of these companies, it seems that they may be involved in energy trading or wholesaling or aggregating. One of them is even named a coal company, which states on it that it is a coal and other minerals company. But one of the other companies, when I went to a site like Yelp, said that they were into energy wholesaling. And so it's hard to really get all the info, but I did get the information on current and former companies run by these principals. So my questions for the mayor and for all the council members, really, even though not everybody was involved in the donations, if this person is interested in somehow being involved in this transaction with Gulf Power, I would wonder about it, because there was a comment made in a recent meeting, at two recent meetings, of the possibility of Destin buying this utility and then selling it. So I would want to know, number one, is there any specific person that has been considered for that purchase?
No.
And here are my questions relative to these companies and to, what contact or involvement you may have had. What contact have you had, either directly or through anyone associated with you, family, relationships, business, friends, group, whatever, both prior and subsequent to your election to your current office? Number one, with the following businesses or anyone associated with these businesses: Crimson Management Corporation, Southern Coast LLC, Crimson Coast Corporation. I think it's Crimson Coast, no, it's Crimson Management is currently a Florida corporation. At the time, it was a Kentucky corporation, but that's been merged now. It's a Florida corporation.
Ma'am, if I could, I would love to ease some of your concerns. I'm actually a candidate currently. I'm up in March 2018, and I have accepted a donation from Mr. Bobo. He has never, ever mentioned anything about electricity, anything of that nature whatsoever. It's never come up. All I know is the man lives in Holiday Isle. We've talked over the years. You know, he asked what we're doing, what, things that we're looking to do for the city. Nothing like that has ever come up, or I certainly wouldn't have accepted such a donation.
Okay, that's the companies. Okay, these following officers have been connected with these corporations. David Bobo, of course, Todd Weiss, Shannon Lynn, Billy Malicote. Billy Malicote also has residence in Destin, or Michelle Turner. So again, if you've had any contact with any of these and had any discussions regarding this purchase, I would be interested in knowing, or anybody else representing them or their corporations. And then, I guess that's the main thing is has there been any discussion in any time, either prior to or during your current
No, there
residence,
hasn't.
you know,
no.
that you've had any discussion with him?
David Bobo gave me $3,000. David Bobo gave me $3,000. He gave me $1,000 from 3 different companies.
Right.
And at the end of my election, I had $5,000 left over. And I gave $1,250 to the Destin Little League, $1,250 to Friends of the Destin Library. Right. $1,250 to the fishing museum, so that money in no
I understand.
way
There may
played
be
a part
nothing.
in my
It just
decision
that raises
making.
a red flag when somebody's coming in and making
Ms.
that kind of
Reagan?
donation.
Yeah, I think it's a
and
great
then
point.
consequently,
Sure,
we're
absolutely.
looking at buying and then selling to a private company.
Yeah, for sure.
Ms. Reagan,
Transparency is vital. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah,
Ms.
thank
Reagan,
you.
before we get too far, I understand, I wish, the truth is never as sexy as sometimes we want it to be. At the end of the day, I took $300 from David Bobo when I ran. David made his money in coal and has retired here and said to me, I'm just upset with the overdevelopment. If you think that you cannot be in the pockets of the development groups and make sure that we get infrastructure solved, I'll give you some money. And I said, listen, I don't need as much as you want to give. I'm running a smaller campaign. But that was the length of the conversation. Right. Furthermore, what we've discussed, we're not generating power. We wouldn't buy coal. We would actually buy power after it's been generated from some other third party.
And this is the type of power that they aggregate and wholesale. They're not producing, well, yes, the coal part, they
sell
produce
coal
some of that. But
to somebody who has to burn it, who then sells it.
Right.
He doesn't do that.
That operation, yes, but the other operations have an indication it may be more than just coal.
But we'd have to spend billions of dollars for him to see some sort of net return. What I'm saying is,
right.
There's no conspiracy here. It's just not.
I hope you don't
And I
mind being
can add to
used.
that because it is a little puzzling. I was frankly shocked when I got a donation from him because I'd never met him. And he's never asked for anything. He's just a concerned citizen. And no, with the type of negotiations we're doing, he'd play no role in it at all. Nor with this company, as far as I know, but none of the individuals who wrote me a check involved with those companies have I ever spoken to. You're fine. Your time's up.
Yeah, I
So thank
appreciate
you.
that input. Thank you.
Please.
You told her for next. So let her
Okay, yes, please. I'm sorry.
Carrie Harbarger, Spring Lane. In getting with the spirit of Christmas, I wanted to know if there was a possibility, perhaps maybe we should decorate our town. There's nothing, I had family that was in town a couple weeks ago, and they're like, what are y'all opposed to Christmas? We're worried about everybody saying Happy Holidays and Merry Christmas, but we have nothing on our highway. And actually, to be honest with you, if we're really trying to promote Destin proper, we really should fest it up and let them know that we're in with the season, but we have nothing. So the parade was beautiful, but there was no decorations, but there's like 4 on Main Street. nobody sees. But I just thought, considering Destin proper needs to be rejuvenated. Is that fun?
I think it's great.
Okay.
Carrie, you make a great point. I
I'm
know we've
sorry, I
talked
just
about
think
it.
we could be more
Yeah.
festive down 98. Okaloosa Island is now, they got jiggy with it, and Fort Walton looks great, so that's it. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Great suggestion. Next, right here.
Good evening, I'm Bonnie Todd, and if you recall at the last City Council meeting that you continued my discussion about the lights at the church to this meeting. I'm not on the agenda, which is confusing. But anyway, I need an answer about the lights at the church. I received a letter on Saturday that the church has hired a lawyer, and I can't afford a lawyer. And I have begged and pleaded. I have done everything I can. And I'm just appalled at the way that I have been treated by city staff and by the church. This has gone on for 8.5 years. Soon it will be 9. I have tremendous goals for the city of Destin, and I am working diligently now to develop a boating education center that is going to concentrate on the STEM education program here in Destin that would bring more visitors and more quality of visitors that don't just come here and friggin' drink, because that's what most of the people do. And I want to develop this boating center, but if I have to deal with these lights for another month, I will take it somewhere else. I am so fed up with the fact that I have lights that have been doubled and they are out of the permit. Those lamps do not equal what was there. And I'm sorry, but I'm already mad as hell again. And I blame this on Miss Lejeune. She hired the worst person she can find to do code
Please point
enforcement.
anything to me or the council in the whole.
Well, I'm telling the council.
Do not
I blame
direct it
Miss
to
Lejeune.
staff.
I'm blaming Miss Lejeune
Do not
for the
direct it
hire.
to staff.
I have a question. At one of our prior council meetings, when Ms. Todd spoke, didn't council ask for someone to look into something or direct staff to look into the situation? I'm trying to recall what the direction was.
Councilmember Destin had a discussion with the pastor from the Methodist Church, and they sort of came up with an informal agreement to come back at this council meeting with a solution. I don't know if that ever happened or not, Ms. Todd.
I got a letter from a lawyer, that's all I know. And I forwarded it to all the city council members. We've got a huge problem with code enforcement. Huge problem. And our new code enforcement manager is going to be more of a problem than an asset. I was actually told by David Vaslak before he retired in March, Bonnie, between you and I quote, between you and I, their church is always in code violation. And I have presented to you that they have 2 conditional approvals that have not been met. One is in 2009 that stated all the lamps would be shielded. 2 were. I've given you photographs. The conditional approval of 2017 actually gives them approval of being over code at .3 versus what the code says at .2. So do I put my house on the market and leave Destin? Or can you help me? I am begging for some relief from these lamps. And nobody on the north side has had any relief in 9 years. It's beyond ridiculous. And also, when Mr. Weaver told you that it stopped the problems in the parking lot, it did not. Saturday night at 11 o'clock, men are outside my house talking in the back parking lot. Soon there's drag racing going on again. My neighbor's at 180. My neighbor's at 186. They all hear it. But nobody does anything to help us.
You've jogged my memory, because I do remember now that when she was here and we were looking through the information, there did appear to be some inconsistencies in the language of the conditional permits. And I mentioned that and asked somebody to look into that. So I would appreciate it, because it stated clearly that the permit was conditional based on XYZ, which included not being a nuisance, and there were several pieces of that when it clearly, anyway, if we go back and look at the minutes of the video, which I'm certainly going to do, but I know that I brought that up because just sitting here looking at it, I went, wait a minute, she's right. There are some inconsistencies that I'd like to have clarified.
Excuse me, Ms. Brown. The conditional approval of 2017 was issued on 7/10 that stated a light contour of 0.3. The Land Development Code limits it to 0.2.
Yeah.
So what does it, is that light contour the difference that gave them the ability to light up my entire kitchen and dining room 24 hours?
Captain Todd, I'm gonna make sure that they look into this because I do clearly remember you're speaking now, and you've made me recall some of the things that I remembered seeing that I wanted to have clarified.
Another question I want an answer to is how do you get a conditional approval dated July the 10th and you get a permit the day after? What is, so that's the city violating its own land development code because it's written down the procedures they're supposed to follow.
Okay. Your time is up now, please.
I just need to know if I need to hire a lawyer. Can somebody answer me? Do I need to hire a lawyer?
Please sit down. Your time is up. Councilmember Dixon.
I got to tell you, I cannot believe that we're still dealing with this. And I'm not saying anything against Ms. Todd about being here with this. I completely understand what you're doing. I cannot believe that we're still dealing with this. I would like for you, Ms. City Manager, Mr. Mayor, if you would please, to assist her and go and sit down and talk with her. A piece of 2x2, a piece of aluminum up there on that pole could fix this problem. I cannot believe for the life of me that we would still be having this issue. I'm just beyond words with it. Even if we needed to plant a tree to block the light or something, we should be able to get that done. We should be able to get this done. This should not be like this. If I was her, I would have the same problem, and I would want something rectified. And in fact, I wouldn't be so nice about it, but I would like to get this solved. I'm sick of it. You understand me?
May I comment, sir? May I comment, Mayor? Okay. The suggestions that you made, sir, are excellent suggestions, but it's private property. We can't force the church to take any action as far as you know, the shielding that you're suggesting.
We can if they're non-compliant, correct? Or if they're violating the conditional permit?
Okay, and if you would like an answer to that, Ms. Bryla is up to speed and she can answer your question on the conditional permit. I have no problem sitting down with Ms. Todd and discussing it. I'm just not sure exactly what, as the city, we can do if the church is in compliance. So would you like Ms. Bryla to talk to you about the conditional use issue now or not?
It really doesn't matter. This is lights that are shining in people's homes. It doesn't matter about any kind of conditional use or anything else. This is neighbor being neighbor. You know, I just can't for the life of me. It'd be the same if it was sound.
But
we would be here with
Tuffy,
it.
I agree with you completely. But the neighbor versus neighbor thing removes the government out of it. And that's the unfortunate part of the situation.
We approved it.
Yeah.
But
and what can we do now?
If it's in compliance, what we can do now is rewrite the ordinance and make it more strict. But I understand, excuse me, please sit down. I understand that the ordinance we have now is one of the more strict ones at least in Northwest Florida. And I believe it's kind of back on the council. If you want to rewrite the light ordinance, that may be the only real solution. I'm not too sure there's a compromise available.
I'll take you up on
it. I would like to hear what, because it was very confusing when I read. Sorry, I turned myself off, which some of y'all might like. But when I read that document that showed the conditional permit and such, it did seem very contradictory because it was very clear cut. If it's a nuisance or it's an issue to the neighbors, then it is to be considered in violation. Well, obviously it's a nuisance. So can you help expand on that? And then the fact that the LED lights are measured differently than the prior lights?
Yes, ma'am, that's two separate issues. The first, the conditional permit, if there was a nuisance that was identified, then the property owner needed to submit a photometric, which they did, showing that all the light levels were at 0. So that's a signed and sealed photometric plan. So we didn't investigate that. We took for the professional person that submitted it to us as at face value. The second thing was the LED foot candles are measured, whether it's an LED or an incandescent or a high pressure sodium. It still emits a foot candle, which is the measurement that we use to get our lighting levels.
Okay, but a foot candle is different than an actual brightness level, a lumens level. And that's the issue with the LED lights, is that they emit less wattage. The candle, the foot candle may be the same, but they're brighter.
They're just, the light is measured differently, but the light level is exactly the same. Which is why we got a different light measurement apparatus to be able to accurately measure the foot candles that are emitted.
Okay, I'm going to stop there because I don't have the expertise to go any further on it. So I appreciate you sharing the knowledge you have. But I know I don't want to speak for everyone up here. I would be very interested and would like to see Mayor, somebody sit down with Captain Todd and try to come to something with the church. I mean, this is just unbelievable. I mean, I've now been over there at night. I've been over there during the day. I've seen her photos. It's disturbing. And if it is something that they're not in violation, then we as a council need to take a look at, what remedy we can come up with to assist homeowners so people live in peace.
My only suggestion would be to invite the church and Ms. Todd to City Hall. If you do such a meeting, don't go and go to their property and do it. Just invite them
Neutral ground,
and don't require them to be there. But if it's suggestive and you want someone on the council to be there, then I would just make it voluntary on their part.
It's not just Captain Todd. I mean, we have another neighbor here that's seen that, and like I said, I've been out and seen it. Others have been out and seen it. So I would appreciate that if that's something y'all could arrange, Mayor and
Councilmember
City
Destin
Manager.
has already made one attempt, but if you would like me to sit down and carry on a further discussion here, but I believe we've had indication the church has done all they're going to do, but at your pleasure, council.
Well, if I need to make a motion.
And you can, Councilman Dixon, because this was actually continued at the last meeting to give them a chance. Yeah, so this was continued to this meeting, so you could make a motion.
All right. I'll make a motion that the mayor, the city manager, Ms. Todd, concerned people that have that, invite the church to see if they will come and see if we can sit down and work this thing out. I mean, it shouldn't take nothing to fix this. And I just can't believe that we've let this thing fester like this long. I realize we're being tied down about the codes and the lumens and everything else that's gone along with it, but this is bothering people. We need to make sure we fix it. And it's not just bothering one family, it's bothering a lot of families.
Second.
I can't believe that they wouldn't be willing to put a shield up somehow to fix this. So, yeah, anyway.
Second.
I have a motion, I have a second, I still have the clock up. Any further discussion, just raise your hand and let me know if you'd like to speak. Please, sir.
What could you repeat the motion?
Is to have the mayor, the city manager, Ms. Todd, the concerned people from that neighborhood, and the church sit down and see if they can come up with anything that could help them with this solution. And I know it's been tried before.
I would like to include the city would be willing to pay for the shield.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll buy it. I will buy it. I'll pay for it. I'll pay. I'll split it with you. Personally, Tuffy Dixon.
We have two council.
You pay for it. I'll split it with Tuffy. No, you pay for it.
Okay.
The point is, we'll find a solution.
We have an offer to pay for the shielding by two council members, but Ms. Lejeune, would you try to get that in writing before we go?
I would cut that portion out for now, Mayor, and if that comes back, that's a solution that needs to be
not part of the
reached.
motion.
I would maybe put down the agenda if you're going to do an expenditure like that.
Yeah, that was not part of the motion. Any other discussion? Call for the vote.
But I'll vote for it.
Please do. Unanimous, yes. Send the mayor back in again.
You're doing good.
Any other public comment? There we go. Thank you, ma'am. Come on
Am
forward.
I allowed, it's kind of about the same subject. Okay. I live at 184 Lolo Circle. I moved here approximately a year ago from Denver, Colorado. I worked for the Department of Labor and Employment for Governor Romer, Governor Owens, and Governor Ritter for over 26 years. So I am more familiar with working with laws and regs and interpretations, etc. My concern is there is more going on here. This is the third meeting I've attended, and I feel like it's kind of like a David and a Goliath. And I don't understand why. Why a neighbor who is obviously it's a nuisance, and it's in the law that if it is a nuisance, it should be addressed, that everyone's ignoring it. At the end of the last meeting, it was continued. You asked whoever that man was from the church to go ask his higher-ups if they would consider putting money into doing this, and it just got dropped off the agenda.
But you got a response. I think Ms. Todd forwarded it to us from the church. That's right. They said not no, but hell no. We've hired Clark, Partington, and Hart. You need to sue us.
So that was the response.
That was the response. They're not coming to this meeting.
There's no public response. She's not the only one.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, we didn't conspiratorially drop it from the agenda from you, because we do care deeply about this issue. But if, like everyone on this council has already said, if it has been approved and it still meets code, there's not a whole lot else that we can do other than try to mediate and hope that the church comes to the table and says, listen, we will try to work with you. But as it stands right now, as of 4 p.m. today, they sent a letter from their lawyer and a good law firm that said, we're not budging, you need to sue us.
I
And we are going
to differ with them saying that they have proven that it meets the laws.
And you'll have to make that argument in the court of law to a judge.
Yes.
No, I'm not giving you legal advice, Ms. Todd. We're trying to get a solution, but
I just want to expose you.
You're not on the floor. Please sit down.
I would like to continue with my own comments at my house.
Please, yes.
Since I moved here, I fell and shattered my shoulder, so I haven't been able to unpack my boxes yet, and then I've been diagnosed with cancer. So I spend a lot of time in my bedroom, and I'm getting treatment and everything, and I'm fine. I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm just saying, every night, the parking lot from the church is so close to my bedroom window, it's like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. When the cars pull up and their headlights come right into my window, and I have curtains. That is an issue. And I sent emails to the church. I got no response from them whatsoever, because I don't think that's right. And I think my way of living and not being able to sleep at night with the lights, I have the same problem that Bonnie Todd has in my house with the lights shining in. And normally, I wouldn't be making a deal, but I just see this just seems so unfair to me, the way it's being handled. And I also have a question about the property line of the church. They have the fence in my backyard 2 feet back from their legal property line. So there are trees that are on my property that are growing huge, and they're getting big, and someone needs to trim them or be responsible for them. They are not my property. It isn't my property. Do they not need to have legal access to care for those trees? When there's so many different little things that are going on, and it just gets blown off. Is it because it's a church? I don't understand. I just don't understand what is going on here. I've never seen anything like it. I thought, what am I, in Mayberry or what? I'm just really, really shocked. And I'm not an expert on law. My father was a patent attorney, and I have had experience with different things in law, been on many, many task forces for the government. But I think the council and the city need to think about what they're doing to citizens. I'm telling you right now, I'm seriously considering about moving out of Destin. And my whole class from Thomas Jefferson in Denver, Colorado, my graduating class of 72, was talking about coming down here, and they were interested. You know what I'm going to tell them? I'm not going to tell them, oh yeah, this is a great place to come, because I'm not happy with the way my neighbor is being treated. My time's up, but that's basically, I just wanted to let you know that it isn't just one person complaining, and I'm sorry I haven't gotten any legal complaints written. I tried, but it kept timing out.
Okay. Thank you. Time's up.
Okay. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments.
Hello, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to y'all tonight. My name is Margie Sellers, and I live at 830 Gulf Shore Drive. And my husband and my 16-year-old daughter and I moved to Destin about 4 years ago, and I guess you could say we've come full circle because my husband and his father-in-law were involved in the development of Shoreline Towers in 1973, and then later the Tides of Destin in 1978. And our family's owned a condo here since '74. So when it came time to retire, it was easy to choose Destin as our destination to live forever. We own a condo at the Tides of Destin and a home at Regatta Bay. First of all, I want to applaud all of you for looking into ways to save money on our power bills and to coming up with ways for more money for the city. I don't know if any of you all have done this. My husband signed up for the Gulf Power Energy Select program where you can save money and conserve energy, and it drives me crazy sometimes, but he got very interested in that. And we started reading about the potential acquisition of Gulf Power by the city of Destin. And we saw some things on social media, and we began researching the issue. And when we got further, and we got a lot of information from a website provided by the Family Businesses for Affordable Energy, which y'all have probably heard of. And we have read all the material, including the feasibility study, the letter from Gulf Power, the data supplied to us by the FBAE. And after reviewing all of this material, and as happy Gulf Power customers and city residents, we, my husband and I, think that the possibility of the city getting into a relationship by running your own utility or even sourcing it out is a reckless idea for our citizens and for the residents. You all know this, that Destin is going to be hit by another hurricane sooner or later. The backup and the depth of Gulf Power is a huge insurance policy for us, and I think that's really something to consider as you all go forward. I understand from reading in the past minutes, and I've been reading a lot of stuff, that the desire for underground lines led you down this path. And I commend you for that, but I also read in the workshop that you all had that Gulf Power was willing to work with you on this. But I read in those documents that each household would have to pay $1,000 to $3,000 for this underground service. That would be paid for by us, the customers, not by the city or not by Gulf Power. And I don't know if a lot of residents really know about that. But some residents do, because a survey was recently done showing that 88% of Destin's residents would be opposed to the city purchasing and running their own power company. I've got copies of this survey, the whole survey, if anybody would like to see a copy of it. I know y'all have a copy. And the $71 million purchase price, as you know in the feasibility study, is just an estimate. And I know you guys looked at the city of Winter Park, and their initial estimates were substantially less than the actual cost. We cannot let this happen to our city. I don't think we as the residents or you as a council want to see the city get into financial trouble over this. It seems to me that you are in such a hurry, or there may be some other agenda going on. I was really concerned when I saw the YouTube video with the city manager and the city attorney were overrun by the attorney from Tallahassee, and you all broke with long-term protocol on the RFP. But now I commend you because you've decided to rescind the RFP, and I think that's a step in the right direction. But I just don't understand why you would continue to pursue this if 88% of your citizens are satisfied with their current electrical service. And if you want to spend money on a study that 100% of Destin's residents would support, why don't you work with Okaloosa County and get us a high school? It's ridiculous that our middle school students are split up to 3 different cities for high school. But that's an argument for another night. But I just simply want to introduce myself and make sure that all the facts will get out on this subject. And if you choose to continue to pursue the acquisition of Gulf Power assets, the least you could do would be to put it to a vote of the people. And I know in the end you'll do what's right for our beautiful city, and we love being citizens of Destin now. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mayor, can I ask, at some point, are we going to respond to the silly stuff that they're putting out?
I agree. You know,
I mean, we're trying to hold back, but the fact of the matter is we're trying to do the proper thing by negotiating with Gulf Power. Gulf Power would simply roll us over for another 30 years if they have the opportunity. And we want something for the citizens of this city.
Well, I commend you for that, but I read a letter
from them,
from Gulf Power, and
yes,
you read a letter that was from a lobbyist group that's paid for by Gulf Power, giving you propaganda to distort the
Johnson?
Here's some from Bernard Johnson.
Yeah,
that he works for Gulf Power.
Right.
So obviously,
that's what I read.
They're responding to their shareholders, not the citizens of Destin. We're responsible to the citizens of Destin. We answer to you, and we're doing what we think is in best interest for the city of Destin by a 5-2 vote, 6-1 vote, depends on what exact issue we're voting on. But here's, for me, why am I doing it? I'm not doing it for underground utilities. Would that be nice? It would. But I'm doing it because as a business owner, in July, my power bills between all of our restaurants, all of our properties might be $40,000. We pay the 3rd highest rates in the state of Florida. January 1st, they've had 2 rate increases, Gulf Power, in the past 12 months.
And those are approved by the Florida
Public Utilities Commission. And by January 1st, we will pay the highest rates in the state of Florida. And so by issuing an RFP to solicit offers from other power companies, I'm looking to get our rates down to save money. That's it. I'm tired of paying the highest bills in the state of Florida. So
it just scares me, the fact that the city would go into trying to run its own power company.
We're not.
We never run it ourselves.
We're not.
That was, and I think that's one of the things that bothers me the most, is the misinformation and the disinformation that is just being spread with a flourish. And I love what you said, that you want all the facts to get out there. Oh my gosh, so do we, because what we're reading and hearing, I've had people email me and say, why are you buying Gulf Power? And when I respond, we're absolutely not buying Gulf Power. You're a liar. And it's just unbelievable the direction this is taken. How this all started was that our contract with Gulf Power expired. So we're
ends in May.
Well, yeah, and actually it was out last year, so we did an extension.
Okay, right.
And so the goal of the extension was fact-finding. let's talk with Gulf Power. Let's see, what, maybe we can change our rates. I mean, what options are there, like anybody does when you get a new contract or an agreement?
I think that's admirable.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's, of course, we're up here because we want to represent the best interests of the people here. Plus, we're paying the power bills at home, too.
I think.
And of all the options, we've got to consider all of them. Is it purchasing it and doing it ourselves? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah.
Is it putting a bid out and seeing if Chelco wants to come in? That's an option. Is it renegotiating with Gulf Power and getting better rates or something? Yeah, probably. But obviously, we've got to consider everything out there so that, we make the best decision. Because if we get into another, 10, 20, 30-year contract, we're stuck for another 10, 20, 30 years. So this is the opportunity we have, and it's just boggling that we've got a DC lobbyist group coming into, 13,000 people, Destin, and spreading all of this wrong information.
I did my own research and found
that group found you, because they've been mailing every citizen and spamming Facebook and all that. But here's the irony of it, and I'm sorry that you're taking the brunt of this, because I've been holding this in for a couple meetings. Here's the irony. The family businesses for affordable energy are lobbying for the most expensive energy provider in the state of Florida. Riddle me that. How is that? How's that affordable? How is that affordable? My power bill is higher than anywhere else in the state of Florida. And the family businesses for affordable energy supports them. It's just the irony is not lost on me.
Have you worked with, my main reason for being up here was in a hurricane, the city trying to operate the power company is scary, and I wanted to make sure those things got out. But
let me answer that last question.
And I would like to know the family businesses that actually support the most unaffordable energy in the state of Florida, because this family businessman is not one of them.
Yeah.
And I know several others that feel the same way about their power bill. They're not some benevolent public service they provide us. They're a corporation, and they're responsible for their shareholders, not the citizens of Destin. We're responsible for the citizens of Destin, and I would appreciate it if Gulf Power and the family businesses for affordable energy would let us do our job and serve our citizens the best way we can.
Or at least tell the truth.
that's fine, and I would hope that you all would work with Gulf Power so that you can get better rates for all of us.
That's what we're doing right now.
If they lower rates for us, they have to lower them for everyone that they provide, and they're not going to do that.
When we put that RFP out, that scared the daylights out of Gulf Power. And the reason why is before then, they just smiled at us the whole time, and they sent all this publicity out. And then we put the RFP out and said that we're going to look at some other companies. Now all of a sudden, they'll sit down with us, but only if we take the RFP back. That answer your question?
Let me say, if I could, and I'm going to be very brief, Mr. Mayor, if it's okay. Mr. Mayor, I was one of the ones that voted no against this originally, but after I saw the way Gulf Power was treating these negotiations that we were in, I voted to let's look at other options, because I am extremely disappointed in Gulf Power and how they've been running this campaign, acting like bullies, basically, in trying to push people into thinking that the city council is trying to do something to take over something like that. And let me tell you something else. What they're protecting is extremely important to them, or they would not be going through these steps. And we talk about the undergrounding that we're talking about here. I got to tell you, I don't know how many miles of undergrounding could be done by the money they paid already to that company, that Family Energy for affordable whatever, that in my opinion have spent more money with that than it would be to underground half the utilities in Destin, it seems like. Maybe not.
And you and I, we've paid for that.
Yeah. It's cost us money because we're the ones who's paying for that advertisement to kick our own butts.
And I don't know about that, but what I do urge you, and you're on the path, is get to a negotiation so that we're not looking at,
Let me respond to that.
Okay.
Being as I'm on the negotiating team.
Okay.
So far, Gulf Power.
and I don't mean to be abrasive at all, I really just want to state my
No,
position.
and we don't mean to be unloading on you. I think, well, I'm not going to put words in the council. Personally, I'm fed up with being hit with these distortions and in some cases outright lies. I'm not too sure that I can prove that Gulf Power actually hired this company, but I don't know who else would benefit from it. Maybe it was Southern. But down in South Florida, they're carrying on another campaign against a city that would like to have the ability to put in reusable energy as wind or solar. And they're fighting against allowing that. That's whatever you want to pay them for, they're the hired guns. They come out of the swamp in Washington, D.C., and they carry all the luggage that they should out of the swamp and log. But just to give you a couple of things to think about, and these aren't debatable. You can go to the state of Florida's Power Commission, and you will note, if you look at the entire list, in fact, I've got pages of them, but say a typical 1,000 kilowatt hour user, which is a home, probably something close to what you use, you're going to be paying approximately $400 a year more than if you were, say, a Florida Power Light customer. In fact, almost any other customer at any other power company, you'd be saving a great deal. And maybe it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it's between $200 and $300 million a year that people in Destin are paying for their electricity over what the Florida Power and Light customer is paying. And you can pick others. I've got the numbers for every power company. As a matter of fact, there's going through this, there's only 5 investor-owned electrical utilities in the state of Florida. There are 40 municipal-owned electric. There are 16 rural electric co-ops in the state of Florida. There are probably a few real bad examples in that bunch. I haven't found them yet. I've talked to a bunch of them, and I haven't found them. But I'm sure there's some bad apples, and you can point to some place that it's a mess. And I won't even begin to debate that. But by far, you don't hear big complaints. They all do a good job. And particularly the larger companies, they do a good job. And if we could entice one in, that would be great. Maybe even some of the smallers. I did sit in a mayor's meeting a couple of weeks ago where this was brought up because we were discussing hurricane recovery. And it was surprising to me that the power was not one of the top issues, but most of the users reported fairly decent recovery from the hurricane along the East Coast. The cities that consistently reported 100% customer back online were the private utilities, not the public utilities. It is not, it's a fiction that they will get you back on faster in a hurricane because every one of these people signed mutual aid agreements and they do it regionally and they're going to bring, and they're going to bring them in, and that's how Gulf Power does it. A lot of the Gulf Power's equipment right here is a contract company. It's a big Miami operation. It goes all over the United States, Mastech.
But wouldn't you have to buy that equipment from Gulf Power?
We would
No.
No.
We would contract those services in the same way that they contract those services as needed.
And you mentioned Winter Park.
Winter Park.
And I've spoken, well, some of the folks from Winter Park came up and spoke with us,
Right.
but I've also spoken to the mayor down there.
I've read about that.
And they are delighted with what they did. And there is...
They had a rough start for the first 4 years.
They did, but it wasn't because of the reasons that have been given by our lobbying group. Okay. They have some areas that they wanted to get into.
I tell you
One
what,
thing they
I will check
aggressively
my-
did, they aggressively started undergrounding power.
Right.
Which they're delighted they did because
Right.
now they feel they're much more resilient to a hurricane.
Sure.
And it wasn't just for cosmetics, it was for lack of damage during storms. But I'm sure there may be some customers up there that will argue, but so far, I can't find anybody that says a bad word about that operation.
I will take what I thought were facts, and I will go through them and do my research, and I'll send you all a letter to correct myself if I've said anything wrong, okay?
And
I thank you for your continued
I
work.
would appreciate one thing is that and I don't think any member of this council has reached any decision that Gulf Power might not be providing your power 5 years from now. But what we do feel an obligation to do is research these numbers. We already know we are the highest. And one thing that bothers me a great deal more, these 5 investor-owned electric utilities, all of them have signed an agreement not to raise rates into the year 2022. They have a power freeze on. Well, I say they all have. There's one that didn't. Only one, and they're putting in another rate increase in January. That's Gulf Power. Only public utility in the state of Florida that's not under a pricing freeze. So whatever prices you're looking at today, you've got to go down the line. You've got a company whose parent company has invested into large nuclear generating plants that have gone south on them. They're concerned now that they may have to shut them down completely. They'll never do that because if they don't complete those plants, then they have to eat the loss, and they're into the 18 billion range already. If they can complete them, no matter what it costs, that price of that power can be passed on to their customers. Gulf Power is a wholly owned subsidiary of Southern, and I want in an agreement that whatever that costs up in Georgia and the plant in Mississippi that's gone south on them, that those rates aren't passed on to us because we are already the most expensive in the state of Florida. And you start adding to it. There was a good story in one of the cities in South Florida talking about the average price, particularly in their low-income areas, what they're having to pay for power, and it's killing them. It's eating them up, and they're not near as high as Gulf Power. This council has got to have some consideration for the average customer out there and try to provide the best power we possibly can at the lowest price, and we look after the citizens of Destin. Mm-hmm. We're not interested in Gulf Power. We're not interested in any of these other 5 utilities. We're not interested in the 40. We want to take care of Destin.
Well,
and if we can get those people to help us, then that's what everyone's doing.
Thank you.
And hopefully we are going to do enough research, and I don't care if it takes me personally, if it takes another month, if it takes another 6 months, if it takes 2 years to hash this out. We are in no hurry. Mm-hmm. In fact, we've already been doing this. I negotiated a contract during a break, during one of the early meetings we were here with Gulf Power to extend this 2 years. We've been negotiating on and off with them for 2 years. Okay. And we're not even close. And in fact, I personally really like, but I like all the guys at Gulf Power I've met so far. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing this because I dislike Gulf Power. Yeah, I'm doing this because I dislike their prices.
Let me just point out one other thing which bothers me greatly. The thought that undergrounding is probably an expensive, frivolous type thing for the city of Destin, but if you look at the hurricanes that came up through Puerto Rico and all up Central Florida and everything like that, the primary reason why they had the problems were the telephone poles. Mm-hmm. And if you get rid of the telephone poles, you don't need the trucks.
Mrs. Sellers, if I could just leave you with one parting thought. Mm-hmm. What I have seen, and I think what we're witnessing, is the deliberate omission of the whole truth and misconstruing what is occurring. Okay. And for me, the very first thing to set me off, and probably the first bit of propaganda they put out, was the information in the phone calls saying that 2 of the council members voted against us seeking other options. Well, that was only half the truth. That vote also included pursuing negotiations with Gulf Power, but that aspect was left out of that. And so that's what they're doing. They're reaching out and they're giving you one piece, but not the entire picture.
Councilman Ramswell, real quick, when you say they,
can
you
we
mean that
allow her to
lobbying
sit down?
group,
I think
correct?
we've beat up on her enough
No,
tonight.
it's fine, and I commend you for keeping on working this, and
And
again, I
and
promise
please-
you I will get my facts straight.
Please keep coming back.
Thank you.
Councilman Ramswell, by clarifying, by they, you mean this Florida Affordable, whatever, this
Right,
lobbying group?
the robocalls they began making, and then the first things that affordable, Families for Affordable Energy, I believe is the full name. Yes, that was their first dose, was after that meeting where we had that vote.
One thing, and I'll stop with this, but I promise you, you will not see this meeting on their website. So
You may see the nice, I bet you $20 a nice lady in the red sweater that mentioned David Bobo gets on Facebook somewhere. You'll see that video.
Yeah, they'll perpetuate that conspiracy.
I'll bet you right now.
Please go
They're
ahead.
good, I'll give them that. They're good at what they
You
do.
have the floor.
Okay, hi, Patty Brown, 86 Shira. Very interesting, those lobbyists from Washington, D.C. have made their way into our short-term rental task force also, representing Home Away and VBRO, so, and sending letters out. It's very frustrating because it tries to derail whatever we're aiming to do. Second thing is, Councilman Marler, your concern about the marijuana is real. Being a California resident part-time, I can tell you it's big business, and it's something this council really needs to keep a close eye on. I don't know what the state of Florida will do to enable you to get a medical marijuana card, but I can tell you in California, if you have headaches, you have a medical marijuana card, and it's highly, highly abused, especially the edibles. People that need it, I see, a great way for them to be able to ease their pain, but it is highly abused, so definitely keep an eye on this. The last thing is, Ms. Lejeune, I was under a little bit of confusion tonight because I thought we were going to discuss the results of the beach workshop. And so I was the only one that came to the workshop meeting that is a beachfront owner. And so are we going to be advised what the results of that survey was? Because it seemed like tonight you had positioned it into 0 to 2 years, and then 2 to 4, and then more than 5. So what are the parameters that we're going to be faced with?
Mayor, may I
please.
answer her question?
Please.
Okay, so all of the information that you're asking for is in the backup in the package. You can pull that down off of the website. It was under a first reading. No, it wasn't a first reading. It was under city manager's report. So the council, it's kind of up to them if they want to allow public comment. I'm happy to talk with you one-on-one, if you like, about the results and where we're going with that. But it really was up to the city council if they want to open it up to public audience, or if there's something that you want to ask or discuss now. This is public audience, and you have the ability to ask or discuss any of those questions right now.
Well, I'm just really concerned how it's going to affect us. I'm very well aware of what's going on in Walton County. And so when the beach renourishment was done in Crystal Beach, we were told that the ECL line was our new property line. So I think, that as beachfront owners, we deserve to know what the results of those surveys are and what the plan is to proceed.
Yes, ma'am. If you would like to take a look at the agenda item, and then if you want to call me, you can come in, we'll sit down, and I'll go over all of that with you if you like.
That would be great. Do you think maybe we could do it before the short-term rental task force? Maybe 2:30 on Wednesday?
Could you call me tomorrow morning,
Sure.
and we'll all look at my calendar?
Okay, sounds
Okay.
good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lee Moore, representing Howard Group. Thank you, Council, Mayor. A few quick comments on the conversation about the utility situation. First of all, I want to commend the Council for absolutely making getting a new high school in Destin a priority. I've been to visioning sessions over the last few years. It's always a high priority on the Council's list, and I believe recently there's been quite a bit of time spent by Ms. Ramswell, Councilwoman Ramswell, and I'm sure others in the very pursuit of that. It's a big challenge, but I commend you. That has been pursued and has been worked on, and time has been spent on it. And I also commend you for what you're doing, again, as I've said before, on the utility issue, the power utility. First of all, we talk a lot about what residential customers are paying and how much more they're paying, which is critically important. What we don't talk about is what business customers are paying and what that difference makes to them. That's a much, much bigger dollar amount for a lot of businesses. So the Family Business Coalition might want to think about looking at that because that can become a big issue for companies. We are an area that supports small businesses and promotes small businesses. They are vital, just like they are anywhere else, to the health of the city. And so I think that's an important point to be made and for people to consider. And the last thing I'll say is that if I were a citizen of Destin, and I'm not, I'm representing a citizen, long-term citizen, and his family, who are. But I will tell you I could be at some point in the future. And I will tell you that if things started going in a good direction on this very front, it would make this city much, much more desirable to live in. And I will tell you that as a person, if I were a citizen of this council, I would be thrilled that you're working so hard. And it is hard because you have taken so much heat. And this is a complicated thing. And it is hard to get through. It's hard to even understand it or begin to understand it. That you have put yourselves out there. Some of you who are even up for re-election very soon have put yourselves out there to do this in the face of all of this public and God only knows from where, other opposition, that as a citizen, I would be very thrilled that you're trying to get the best deal possible for me, the very best deal possible for me. And that's all that I've seen you do in this entire process, and I'm sure it's all you'll continue to do. And I feel very confident that you wouldn't do something to put the city at risk. And you've got a staff behind you, you've got consultants behind you that you've wisely hired. So I want to commend you for all that. I think you're doing a fantastic job, and I hope you'll stay the course and continue to look at all options, not just the ones that have been discussed tonight necessarily, but all options. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Robertson again.
Mark, hit the button. Yep.
Sorry.
Repeat your name.
Mark Robertson. Just in passing about the light poles, I went and looked at the parking lot. Light poles have numbers, so when you get your grand meeting, if you bring the pole number, kind of the offensive poles in question, that might focus the discussion a little bit.
This is on private property, numbers.
It's, because,
This is not phone poles.
This is not phone.
Street light.
okay, because I went down that side, I thought it was a side alley.
No, this is private parking lot.
My apologies. And, I live off Airport Road, and there's a lot of crashes on the turns, as you know. I've been seeing crash after crash, and I was concerned. I saw a rollover motor vehicle accident. As I was saying before, I've spent 20 years talking to victims of car accidents, and just
for your information, there's been a recent study done on that, and there are improvements in the works to try to
Good. That's what I was hoping. I reached out to Ben. He runs the airport, and Chad Rogers is the engineer that fixes projects there. I mean, there's a grade issue, there's a traction issue, there's a signage issue, there's a speeding issue, it would help probably to have a guardrail. It's by a fuel dump. You guys know all these things. I just wanted to bring it to attention. It's gone on a long time. If there's anything to increase the sense of urgency to solve that, maybe we can make it a little safer before the next accident. That's all I wanted to say. And I know I've stepped into something I trust you guys have been working on. I just had some emails from Chad. He's responsible to fix the fence, and they're delaying to fix the fence because they want to fix the road before they fix the fence, because the cars keep crashing into the fence. You have a hole in the fence, it's a security issue because you got aircraft. things that you guys know, and they're even contemplating moving the fuel dump because that's where the turn is, and that's a huge expense. But if there's anything that kind of can speed that up, I think that would be good for the public. And then Gulf Power, I don't want to repeat anything that's going to be said. Obviously, there's a lot of emotion here, and sometimes there's probably more heat than light. I'm sure we want to make a rational decision, not just an emotional decision. That may help if we can divide the question. Burying power lines is a huge issue. I've talked to business owners on Main Street. Their testimony was it took 2.5 years, $3 million, a lot of cost overruns. That's one issue. Buying a huge power company versus renegotiating the rates is another
We can't renegotiate
issue.
the rates. It's just a
You guys are we elect you as our representatives because you have to get down in the weeds. I'm just saying, I'm stating the obvious now after what's been said. Okay. I wasn't a part of that. I'm just saying, when you mix in buying a power company with burying lines, negotiating rates, sometimes it just helps to divide those issues for clarity and transparency and understanding. And a lot of that is getting mixed together, and people are confused and they're upset and they're afraid and they're frustrated. All things that I think we just heard you dialogue, and I didn't want to repeat what was said. But if my final thought, I like how Ms. Ramswell said, if I can leave you with one final thought, if anything can be done to increase the sense of urgency on the turn, I think that would be, and fixing it, not just awareness, but actually taking action. And did I hear you guys correctly that the zoning for the marijuana, it's just going to be pharmacies, it's not going to be industrial? It's not going to go in an industrial area? Or is it?
That was correct.
It's a both and, so what I said there, I thank you guys for concentrating that and taking action and keeping it out of the industrial area. Thank you and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. We haven't worn you out yet.
Somebody left a pretty pin here. Sue again, I just want to thank you all for the open and honest discussion.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Please give your full name and address again.
Oh, Susan Regan.
Right, the record is recorded on
Okay.
television, and the
So you need
recorder
my address?
can't tell who you are.
Still need my address again, 806 Spanish Moss Trail in Kildare subdivision.
Thank you.
And I just want you to know it's been a real blessing to be here tonight. I'm so glad I was able to be here. I wish I could be here more Mondays nights, but my first call is to the jail on Monday to be with the ladies to pray with them. But I really, really appreciate your open and honest discussion on the Gulf Power issues, because I have served on a homeowners association board. I know that what comes out to the public, they're griping about the homeowners fees after you've done the reserve study, and all that. So I really appreciate your heart. I appreciate everything you've put into it, and I appreciate you sharing that with us tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Destin.
I'll try to keep it brief, and it has already been a long night. I understand the joy of that. I want to discuss briefly an issue with the Heritage Park next door to our property on the harbor. As you know, I think the 90% build-out design has been done. We got that from the city, and we went through it, and we noticed that the reduction of the bluff is still in that plan. I think the plan calls for a 12 to 14 foot reduction of the bluff. It starts 2 feet from our property line. As you may also know, we have a lot of large heritage oaks on that property. And so, due to the concern we had for the health and the longevity of those, we hired a forestry arborist consultant who did a report on the effects on our trees that removing the bluff would have, and putting the drainage pipes approximately 14 feet down. I want to give that to you, and Ms. Lejeune, I'm sorry, my printer. Yep, and I'm not asking you to take any action tonight, but my question is, we tried to go through protocol and approach the Harbor CRA so that we could discuss the design parameters of the park. We went twice over the last month or so. Staff refused to allow the CRA to discuss the issue. And so I'm here as the next step to try to work with the city to try to preserve these trees. You know, it's somewhat ironic that money set aside for conservation by the state of Florida very possibly will destroy some of the last big, pretty trees. And it doesn't have to happen that way. We can design the park where the trees won't be killed. And this doesn't just affect our lot, it affects the trees on your lot and the trees around. Because as you will read that report, this design will dramatically change the hydraulic profile of the area. So we are still standing ready to try to work with you on a couple of the other problems. You don't have the parking that's required at the moment. We would help in that instance. I think we probably could help with handicap parking and access issues. So I would like to see us move forward, but the biggest question on my mind tonight, and you guys hopefully after the first year can address it, is are we going to review the plan at all? The staff seems to say that it's no longer suitable for review and that there will be no review of the plans, even though the record will indicate that the last time it was reviewed, it was at the 60% mark by the CRA in 2014. So the majority of the plan, or at least a large part of it, has not been reviewed by anybody. So I was going to ask you guys, is there going to be a review of the details? If not, then we don't have anywhere to go on this. Thanks.
Mayor, actually, that's a good question. What is the procedure and when should plans come back to us to approve? Because I think the last one I remember was the 60%. And then I know I had asked for a copy of the 90% because I'd heard there had been talk about a 90% completion when y'all went to the state. But at what point does the council need to see it and approve it? I mean, should we have seen this before 90?
I believe council asked to have the plans brought to a point where we were in a position to build the park when the funding became available, and that's what brought it up to the 90%. As to whether we have the right to review them, Ms. Virginia, you want to address that, or do we need to come back with an answer later?
I will need to come back with an answer later, sir, as far as the requirement to review. If the council wishes to review it, I don't see any problem with us bringing forward to council if that is a request. The CRA in their motion to approve the 60%, the motion stipulated that there would be changes, and it would not come back to them for review. And it was only the last couple of meetings that they asked to see it. By that time, it was done. It had gone up to the county. It had been approved under the county's 5-year plan. There was really no requirement to bring it to the CRA advisory board. We're happy to bring the plans to the council if that's the will of the council.
Well, but I mean, okay, so that's the CRA, but what about the council? I mean, what steps along the way?
Yes, ma'am, that's what I have to clarify, whether there was a requirement to bring it, and I'll get that answer for you. But as far as just requesting to review it, we can bring it at the next meeting if you want to see it.
I definitely would like to see it.
Is that the will of the council for it to come back at the next meeting?
It appears to be unanimous.
Thanks.
Any other member of the public? Mr. Tadlock.
Honorable Mayor and honorable councilors, I'm Guy Tadlock. I live at 502 Noriego, and I am a citizen of Destin. I just want to say that I certainly agree with everything Ms. Moore said. about the power initiative. We really appreciate, myself and many of my neighbors, we really appreciate the hard work and the diligence that our council has shown in going through this very difficult task. And I know, and having talked to a lot of people in the public myself, and people asking me why I support this effort, it's hard to get through that propaganda that they've already been fed. But I'd like to suggest to you that, first of all, almost 2 years ago to the date, the contract with the power company wasn't signed. And I'm convinced, as Mr. Morgan mentioned, that we've already staved off one price increase. And if we don't continue to take this thing forward, we'll probably have another one, or there'll be one on the horizon. So my suggestion to you is be good negotiators, sit down and work with Gulf Power every way you can, but let me encourage you to get that RFP, get it cleaned up, all the changes that need to be made, and be prepared to send that back out. Because I know exactly what Mr. Dixon's talking about. I know what it is that they're trying to protect. It's a huge profit. It is a huge profit, folks. I own property right now in a little town in South Alabama that has their own utility. It's owned by the city. The rates are about 20% less than what I pay here in Destin. The other thing that goes with a city-owned utility is they basically contract out most of the work just as Gulf Power does. In my neighborhood, I never see Gulf Power trucks. It's always Mastech or Asplin. So we're going to see Gulf Power contract more of that stuff out because they can find cheaper contractors. But I urge you to keep that possibility open and continue negotiations because I believe there's still a lot on the table. We're just going to have to work for it a little bit. And finally, Merry Christmas, and thank you very much for everything you do for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? We're adjourned.